There will be a Q&A after each session today. We will attempt to address all questions. However, due to the tight schedule, any questions that are not addressed will be followed up with a Q&A document posted to the event website in the days following today's event. We encourage you to provide comments and interact with each other and other attendees as well in the chat area. Please be sure, though, all questions for the presenters are provided in the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen. You can click to open that up. So please be sure to use that so we do not miss them. Today, all attendees will be in listen-only mode, so you all are muted. This is to help ensure a smoother experience for all of us. For those interested, 3 CLPs will be issued out to all who have attended today. And now I turn it back over to Robin.
Thank you, Liz. And just another reminder, you can adjust your view using the box at the top right-hand side of your screen. That way you can make it for optimal viewing. You can adjust it how you like. Today's event is going to consist of 7 different sessions over 3 to 3.5 hours, ending at approximately 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Throughout the event, we're going to be asking you some polling and some knowledge check questions. So please be sure to respond and stay engaged and let us know what you think. It's a great way for you to give us your feedback. In fact, why don't we try a couple of polls now? Liz, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Here's the first poll. Please indicate where you, whether you represent agency partner, industry partner, GSA, or other. Just a quick 20 seconds for each of these polls today so we don't go too long. And I'll go ahead and end it now. And it looks like agency partners are winning by a short distance there. So it's nice to have you all with us, and it's good to see the blending of all the different folks who are with us today. We also have one other poll real quick. Could you tell us which 2 resources do you find to be the most valuable? I won't read those all off, but go ahead and pick which one you think is best. Again, 20 seconds. Just a couple more seconds left, so quick, get your vote in. And let's go ahead and share those results. Looks like the sample statement of work has a pretty big calling for what everybody thinks is the most valuable. And back to you, Robin.
Thank you, Liz. And everyone, remember, you can go ahead and close that poll window when you're done with it. It is now my pleasure to introduce Ms. Pamela Mines, Acting Assistant Commissioner for the Federal Acquisition Service, Office of Customer and Stakeholder Engagement. As Assistant Commissioner, Ms. Mines impacts a business volume of over $50 billion and leads a team of nearly 270 dedicated public servants that provide value across FAS organizations and ensure cost efficiencies for taxpayers. Ms. Mines, the floor is yours.
Thanks for the introduction, Robin. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 3rd session of our FAST 2021 monthly series or monthly conference series on incorporating security into your IT acquisition. We had over 1,300 individuals registered with a really excellent mix, it appears, of government and industry partners, so welcome. And it also looks like we have a really good representation from across the country. Looks like participation is at nearly 600, if not over by now. And so again, welcome from across the country. Myself, I am from Virginia. So this session is designed to help you learn approaches to incorporating cybersecurity standards into acquisition planning and contract administration. Also, market research techniques and best practices on evaluating capabilities and managing performance, emerging market trends and insights impacting specific categories, and much more. So our GSA mission, our core mission is to deliver value and savings in real estate, acquisition, technology, and other mission support services across government as a partner. This starts with the foundational value we build into our contracts. So what you can expect is that all of our contracts are 889 Part A and B certified and TAA compliant. We have built-in transparencies in terms of our dashboard analytics, which are available to you as our end users, and in some cases, our industrial base as well. We do a lot of statistical analysis on pricing to ensure it is fair and reasonable. And we also have spend under management and best-in-class certified acquisition solutions. We have an experienced industrial partner base with a minimum of 2 to 5 years for entry to multiple award schedules and government-wide acquisition contracts known as GWACs. So a lot of variety in solutions, and with an incredibly robust and experienced industrial partner base. So we build on that value through category management. Why is that important? So our fast solutions that you will hear about today have received at least a tier 2 or tier 3 designation. That means they're designed to capture more data and better data on spend under management and best in class contract use, harnessing this information to drive enhancements. The more contracts are used across government, the more information you will have available to drive better results, narrow the choices, and drive you to those choices. Government-led spend strategy and shared market intel across government, access to prices paid data are all used to inform you of your buying decision, or inform your buying decision. And by launching these monthly conference series, we are bringing live we're bringing this live and working as your partner in tandem. Next. Continuing this building value, we build this value to reduce friction in the processes by providing a suite of acquisition planning packages. The acquisition planning packages include a minimum of 4 things: sample RFQs, sample RFIs, and templates as well, buying guides, and buying tips. In addition to that, we have tools and dashboards, or tools such as dashboards. We have our marketing research as a service, a process and tool. We have eBuy, all designed to help streamline the front end of the process, of your acquisition planning process. So all of the acquisition planning packages are currently accessible on GSA.gov for 5 government-wide categories so far. That includes information technology, facilities, office management, professional services, security, and protection. During today's session, we are highlighting IT security. And we have IT experts you'll hear from shortly. Will provide an overview of the evolving security landscape, its impact on buying IT, and steps FAS is taking to integrate cybersecurity and supply risk management best practices into the foundational value. So I encourage you to use this as an opportunity to chat, to provide feedback, engage the GSA experts and each other. And again, thank you for your participation and spending the next few hours with us.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you, Pam, for the great opening remarks. Let's move on to the next slide, please. I'm Larry Hale. I'm the director of the IT security subcategory. Just a quick overview through the course of the afternoon. You'll be hearing presentations to help you understand the evolving security landscape, its impact on buying technology. We're going to start with some discussion on the Department of Defense's cybersecurity maturity model certification, CMMC, and how that is based and founded on NIST standards, and how we're incorporating that into our into our IT contracts going forward. And that incorporates security risk management into these contracts, including cybersecurity maturity and supply chain management. As Pam Mines mentioned, we have a case study on acquisition planning packages. I will be reviewing the NIST publications related to cybersecurity in GSA contracting and government contracting. And we'll be talking as well about GSA's approach to supply chain risk management specifically in the second generation IT acquisition. You'll get a demonstration on the Solutions Navigator system, and then we'll also be talking managing risk after award. Next slide, please. And next slide. So supply chain risk management and cybersecurity in federal contracting is not a mystery, and it's not arbitrary. We base these on published standards that are developed by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, in collaboration with government and industry. So these are industry developed standards published by NIST, and I'll be talking a little bit about the publications as we go forward, but on the slide you can see the list in front of you. Next slide, please. So the NIST standards, or the NIST publications that are relevant to cybersecurity and supply chain risk management include the ones that you can see on the screen. I'll just quickly touch on each of them by their title, but 800-37 is the risk management framework. 800, moving left to right clockwise, 853 is security and privacy controls for systems and organization. And if you drop down beneath that center tile, you'll see 800-53A, which is regarding assessing controls in systems and organizations, building effective assessment plans. So 853A directly supports 800-53. Moving again to the top right, 800-161, supply chain risk management practices for systems and organizations. And dropping to the lower left corner, and of particular importance for the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, or CMMC, is NIST Special Pub 800-171, protecting controlled unclassified information in non-federal systems and organizations. Controlled unclassified information, some of you may be familiar with terms that have been in use in the past, such as for official use only, or acquisition sensitive, or law enforcement sensitive. Those were handling terms for unclassified information, which now fall under the umbrella of CUI, or controlled unclassified information. And again, this is a little bit of foreshadowing towards CMMC, because 800-171, the handling and protecting of controlled unclassified information, forms the basis for the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, or CMMC, being promoted by DoD. And on the right-hand side, lower right, 800-171A is similar to 853A, assessing controls for systems. 800-171A is assessing security requirements for controlled unclassified information. Next slide, please. So these NIST publications, the ones that you see on this chart, are applicable to federal organizations. They provide a repeatable methodology and a suite of guidance for ongoing risk management. And that's the important point. They are not a one and done compliance checklist. This is about managing risk, and risk management, by definition, requires an ongoing, repeatable process. Next slide, please. So in particular, the 171 and 171A, the NIST publications that are applicable to non-federal information systems and organizations to protect controlled unclassified information. Specifically, these NIST pubs, 800-171 and 171A, form the foundation for the cybersecurity maturity model, because it is how companies protect controlled unclassified information, particularly in support of their federal contracts. So non-federal information systems, systems that are managed by companies in their companies, and but handling and processing controlled unclassified information on behalf of federal agencies. So again, we focus in specifically on 171 and 171A to get the guidance for the protection of controlled unclassified information, and that provides or provides the foundation for getting certified in the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, CMMC. And as you can see in the last bullet, the CUI has to be protected at a moderate impact level, focused on confidentiality, focused on protecting the information. Again, this is not arbitrary. These are publicly published standards. They recognize existing law, policy, and as you can see, privacy, tax information, financial information, intel, law enforcement, critical infrastructure, procurement and acquisition, and the CUI registry and the definitions of controlled unclassified information are provided by the National Archives and Records Administration, or NARA. Next slide, please. So again, diving deeper into 800-171, this provides federal agencies the recommended security requirements for protecting that CUI, that controlled unclassified information. It's intended for use by federal agencies, but also for non-governmental organizations. So again, to just underscore that these two publications, if you're interested in obtaining a cybersecurity maturity model certification, these two publications provide the foundation for that. Next. So these NIST publications are related in helping companies and agencies develop repeatable processes to manage security, privacy, and supply chain risk. Again, it's an ongoing, repeatable process. And as you can see, in the center of the graphic to the right, you can see the cycle of the risk management framework with, excuse me, categorizing the system, selecting the controls, with preparation in the center, by the way, as the centerpiece, selecting the controls, implementing the controls, assessing those controls, authorizing the system or getting an ATO, an authority to operate, and then continuing to monitor and conducting that continuous monitoring. And the NIST pubs in the inner circle around that risk management framework support and define each of those steps in the risk management framework. And as you can see, there are additional pubs around the outer ring that provide additional amplifying information. But again, this facilitates making risk-based decision-making to support missions and business functions. And it's not a check mark, it's not a check block for compliance. And achieving the ATO, as you can see by the ongoing circle in the center, achieving an ATO or getting authorization is not the end game. It's simply one step in managing the risk. Next slide. So as with this, I'm about to turn it over to my colleague, Keith Nakasone, but just want to underscore that cybersecurity is everybody's responsibility. Today, the White House issued an executive order on cybersecurity, further clarifying and accelerating federal efforts to improve cybersecurity. So this does elevate awareness of cyber threats, supply chain risk, and mitigation measures. And today's executive order is a perfect example of the ever-changing regulatory environment and the requirements on all of us to improve cybersecurity. So this does help us shift from a compliance mentality to a maturity model, such as DoD's Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, or CMMC. And it does support and is part of I mean, you've all, acquisition professionals are familiar with the pillars of cost, schedule, and performance. The fourth pillar is security. It's here to stay. It's not going away. With that, Keith, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Larry. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad you could be here with us at FAST 2021 and to hear our strategy as well as the framework and some of the governance efforts that we have in play within GSA. So let's talk about cybersecurity maturity model certification and why GSA is involved in the process. So first off, one of the things that we're doing is that we offer the best-in-class vehicles from a government-wide acquisition perspective. So we can't ignore the fact that we need to consider all of the cybersecurity, as well as supply chain risk management requirements that are being incorporated into acquisition vehicles. So one of the things that we're looking at is CMMC. And the adoption of it is, how do we inject it into our GWACs as well as the IT schedule program moving forward? As we move forward, what we're doing is we're embedding some of the CMMC language within the GWAC itself, so that it would be within scope of any orders that are placed against the government-wide acquisition contracts. So next slide. Okay, so this is kind of a representation of the different levels. Why does the DoD have different levels? Not all IT systems and projects and programs are equal. So, it's like, I look at this as when you look at the IT infrastructure, and when you look at all the different programs and projects, we build acquisitions to align with the mission requirements and what they need within each of the programs and projects to have what we call mission success, right? We want the desired outputs and outcomes to align with their mission as well as the requirements moving forward. So what we're doing is we're structuring the acquisition vehicles to align so that we would be able to have that flexibility and agility moving forward. And that's why when we build something, we don't build it only for one set of requirements. We look at the adoption and we look at how we can build in a model and provide those solution sets in a way that the delivery model can change based on requirements. Next slide. So one of the number one things that we need to consider is how do we protect, right? And so as we know, the non-federal system use is increasing with the cloud adoption models. And so when we deliver capability through our acquisitions, we have to consider what we can do, what is the art of the possible with the injection, not only about the requirements that are in either statement of work or statement of objectives or performance work statements, but what we're also looking at is the contract clauses, terms and conditions, as well as how do we evaluate contracts moving forward. Next slide. So when we talk about the agile approach, and when we talk about how we're going to move forward with the Department of Defense in implementing CMMC, it takes engagement, it takes collaboration, and we're going to be doing a lot of collaboration, education and training to ensure that people understand how to use our government-wide acquisition contracts, but also have those meaningful private and public engagements moving forward. Because that's going to be key for us to understand the frame of reference from a private industry perspective, but also the other agencies that we support, so that our acquisition vehicles will be able to have that agility and flexibility built in moving forward. Next slide. So how are we going to participate? So our first effort, as some of you know, STARS 3 has the language incorporated into the GWAC, and we're going to work alongside with the Department of Defense as they identify their programs and projects that will adopt the CMMC framework. We will be alongside and working with the DoD partners in helping with communicating that language to the acquisition workforce, both internally to GSA as well as externally to the DoD contracting officers that may be building requirements against our IT GWACs or the IT schedule. Next slide. So how, from an objectives perspective, we're looking at how do we take these use cases How do we take each of those programs and projects to deliver capability? And this is going to be a journey. This is not something where we do a one and done. This is where we're going to be, it's going to be a phased approach. We're going to learn together. We're going to adjust and make changes and revisions accordingly. But the main thing is here, the collaboration, communication with the partners are going to be key in the success of the program. So as we move forward, we're going to continue to work with the partners out there as well as the civilian agencies to educate, train, and raise the awareness in and around cybersecurity and supply chain risk management. Next slide. So why is this important when we talk about supplier relationship management and supply chain risk management? When we talk about cybersecurity, it's not about just one part of the process. What we need to do is be all inclusive. So those active engagements with our supplier base, with the industrial base, understanding how companies and the private industry is dealing with supply chain risk management as well, gives us a better footprint and understanding of what is the art of the possible when we're delivering and setting up requirements for the future, meaning building requirements in acquisition solutions moving forward. So this is going to be key, having those meaningful discussions and collaboration with the supplier base. Next slide. We recently, in the past couple of years, the National Defense Authorization Act talked about the prohibition of telecommunications equipment as well as video surveillance camera. And we're probably going to see more coming in the future, but we have a process in place. As people know, it's referred to as the Section 889 Part A and B, where we basically remove products from our schedule that are prohibited from being sold. So in the future, you're going to see additional training, additional guidance, and we're building into this. We're building out the governance process within GSA as well to ensure that we keep our schedule and our IT GWACs clean of the prohibited products. Next slide. Some of the products here are identified, and we're going to continue to monitor. We have a process in place that will continue to scan the catalog to ensure that we remove the products to the maximum extent practicable. We know that it's a continuous process. As we identify loopholes or areas where we need to shore up, we will definitely do that. But we do have a process in place to ensure that we remove prohibited products. Next slide. So one of the things that we, again, it's an education process, right? So as we go through the delivery, as we look at what we're doing and what GSA provides, this is where the value comes in. We're providing a catalog where we try to deliver the best, where it's TAA compliant, as well as complies with the supply chain approved products, etc. But we're going to do our due diligence to ensure that we do our part in providing the support that so that we can deliver additional capability so that we won't have an issue or the injection or using acquisition solutions that have these prohibited items. Next slide. And again, you're going to see continuous changes to the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation. You're going to see the subparts change to accommodate the prohibition language that will continue and move forward. This is the first change that you'll see in 4.21. And you're going to continuously see changes as we move forward, not only in the Federal Acquisition Regulations, but more than likely in the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulations as well. Next slide. And these are the new FAR clauses that have been, that you'll see incorporated into our contracts, solicitations and contracts moving forward. This is to raise the awareness for the contracting officers that we are definitely putting a little bit more rigor into the cybersecurity and supply chain risk management as we move forward. So more to follow and more to see. More acquisitions will adopt the new language that has been provided. Next slide. So from an organizational level plan, we definitely need to understand how do we build this process within the people, the process, and the technology. So on our next slide, what you'll see is a model. So within GSA, what the Federal Acquisition Service is doing is we built a process where we can address cybersecurity and supply chain risk management. So what you'll see is the delivery model will definitely be changed. And so when we look at how do we create acquisition solutions, considering security and supply chain risk management, as Larry said, we look at cost, performance, schedule, and we look at that risk, and we also look at security. So as we build and we change the model of delivery, it's going to also change the potentially how things are priced, how things are delivered, and how things are managed. And so within the Federal Acquisition Service, the supply chain risk management governance and the operational guide was developed so that we would have an executable way of actually doing proper supply chain risk management within the organization. And this is a key thing that we need to do to ensure that we have the ability to oversee all of the acquisition vehicles that we have, as well as the industrial base that are within our portfolio. So again, this is key to the success of implementing a program within the IT portfolio that will ensure that we deliver this capability and have mission success within the different agencies as well as internally to GSA. And with that, if you have any questions, I think Larry and I are standing by.
Hey, Keith and Larry, this is Tom. So we got a couple of good questions for you from the community. First question was from Lawanda, and she was asking whether, let me get it for you directly. She was asking, scroll back up to it, apologies.
So I think I saw Lawanda's question. She was asking if CMMC was going to be required for all agencies. Was that the question, Tom?
Yes, and then there's a follow-on to that one as well from our friends at the Veterans Health Administration.
So Larry, I can take that first. Is CMMC required for all agencies? No, the acquisitions are built so that we have the flexibility of addressing requirements as they come in. So the flexibility under the IT government-wide acquisition contracts, as well as the schedule program, it's not required at the base level. It will be based on the agency requirements as we receive them. So that's what we talk about when we build our acquisition vehicles, to have that flexibility and agility to address specific IT requirements and cybersecurity and supply chain risk management requirements as they come in. Larry?
Keith, I couldn't have said it better. So the idea is our contracts are open to all federal agencies. We want to build in that flexibility so that our DoD customers who will be required to use CMMC certified service providers, effective, I believe it's going to be in 2026, that it'll be required for all DoD contracts. And as Keith pointed out, with the stair steps, it's ramping up. But we recognize also that this is a certification that other agencies may well and hopefully will want to take advantage of, and that it'll be a competitive edge for our industry partners who are able to take part in that certification.
Okay, Larry and Keith, here's another good one for you. Jacqueline asked the question, is there a plan to address the cost associated with CMMC certification for GSA schedule holders? She acknowledges that DoD recognizes this as an allowable reimbursable cost, but how does GSA plan to handle this under the schedules program? That's likely probably more directed with Keith.
Sorry, I was on mute there. As we look at requirements and we look at how things are built at the order level, again, you know, there's going to be different levels. So you have to address it not only at, it's not necessarily at the schedule level, it's at the order requirement level. So if we, for example, if you have a order placed against the IT schedule, you look at what is the requirements and then you price accordingly. So it's like anything else, right? When we you have your baseline, and let's say the baseline is just your plain old commercial off-the-shelf product. You have to add and you add additional requirements on top of that, and this is where that best value analysis comes in. So when you look at the order level, you look at the restated requirements, and then you'll see pricing in accordance with the stated requirements within the SOW or PWS, et cetera. So again, the flexibility is there. It's how you address it on a case-by-case basis. It's not at the higher schedule level. It's really at the order level. Larry, you have anything else on that part?
Nope, you nailed it, Keith.
Okay.
Okay, from a Robin and Liz perspective, how much more time do we have for Q&A session, just so I know what the hard stop is?
We have a couple more minutes, so go ahead. We're at 1:38 and we're going to stop at 1:40. So.
Okay, great. So we got time for like one more question. Let's see, got another good one from, and not related to CMMC, but from Cynthia. The question is relative to how does GSA for multiple award schedules, formerly known as Schedule 70, service contracts address disclosure of ownership, foreign influence in parentheses, DFARS 7009 is the reference point.
So I don't know if that pertains to our swim lane on this one. We could take that one for a after action, and we can come back and provide an answer to that question.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Okay, one other individual, I think also Cynthia, had a question relative to, has the government implemented a certification process for contractors above CMMC level 3? She annotates that as of the end of last year, they had not identified those certification requirements yet, and that there wasn't a mechanism in place. And so maybe you have essay or knowledge on kind of what's the path going forward for those that want to be overachievers.
So I would go back and ask the questions with our DoD partners, and we can certainly bring that up with our DoD counterparts on that side and get back to you on that one.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, I mean, CMMC, by focusing on controlled unclassified information, it's by definition broad, focused but broad. The next national security systems would be not just one level above CMMC, but several levels above CMMC. But there are obviously standards and requirements for bidding on and operating national security systems that definitely exceed what we've been discussing here today with CMMC.
Great. Thank you all for that wealth of information from Larry and Keith and from facilitating those questions, Tom. I appreciate that. If we didn't get to your questions, not to worry. We'll follow up with a response in our Q&A and a Q&A document that will be released following the event to address all the questions so that you can get those answers later at that event website, gsa.gov/FAST.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you, Liz. Good afternoon. And first, I'd like to welcome you and thank you all for participating in today's Federal Acquisition Service conference series. I'm delighted to be here and excited about the conversation we will have today on the evolving security landscape, our evolving regulatory environment, addressing cybersecurity and supply chain risk management, as well as the role of new technologies to help meet these challenges. Bart and I would like to take this opportunity to share with you information on the latest tools and technologies available to support you in each phase of the acquisition process and help you identify solutions that align with your specific IT and security requirements. GSA offers multiple pre-competed acquisition vehicles with embedded security to save you time and money and facilitate your IT acquisitions. In this session, you will learn about GSA's IT Solutions Navigator tool, which is aimed to help manage your work, align solutions, and facilitate your acquisitions. The IT Solutions Navigator tool enables you to view the latest technology products, services, and solutions offered by GSA. And it's designed to provide you online acquisition support for conducting market research, as well as expanded decision support to help you select and utilize GSA's specific contract vehicles that are available to support your mission needs. Next slide, please. So what does IT Solutions Navigator do for you? The tool will assist you in evaluating the entire suite of technology products, services, and solutions that are available through GSA. It provides you access to all of GSA's IT contracts, and its aim is to help you make smarter choices by providing guidance on selecting those best contracts from the broad array of IT offerings that are available. The IT Solutions Navigator tool is centrally available through the GSA web portal. It is available to all federal, state, local, and tribal government organizations, as well as other agencies and organizations who are authorized to utilize GSA sources of supply and services. Overall, the tool will connect you to GSA resources, additional tools, and expanded decision support for all of your IT and specific security-related acquisition needs. I do want to highlight that it complements GSA's Acquisition Gateway. You'll be learning more about that specific solution later on in today's session. Acquisition Gateway in particular provides an online workspace for comparing government-wide solutions, and you can obtain specific contract and pricing information for all of the product service categories in one central location. So next slide, please. So in summary, what's in it for you? The IT Solutions Navigator tool really is designed to streamline the acquisition process for you. It provides an easy to use web-based portal that's centrally accessible to identify and acquire GSA IT solutions. Navigator provides step-by-step guidance on selecting the best solutions from those broad array of offerings. So our goal is to really enable efficiencies and cost savings and performance improvements to help you during that market research and buying process. As underscored in the preceding session by Keith and Larry, the latest offerings such as 2GIT include embedded provisions for supply chain risk management. And we are working to integrate the new set of cybersecurity maturity model certification standards that the Department of Defense will be implementing on all their contracts. We anticipate that will be available in our next generation contracts, including 80 Stars 3 and Polaris. So upon award, those particular contract offerings will also be made readily available to you in the tool. If you require assistance with your IT acquisition, IT Solutions Navigator provides real-time support through an integrated help desk. And we also offer you a live chat capability that is administered by GSA's National Customer Service Center. So at any time during your buying process or market research planning phase, you need assistance, that real-time support is available to you. So in addition to advice and assistance that our GSA reps can provide you, there are additional online self-service resources to help you align those IT solutions to meet your specific mission requirements. So I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, Bart Bates, who is going to provide a high-level demonstration of the tool for you. Bart, I'll turn it over to you at this point.
Thank you, Lillian. Welcome to IT Solutions Navigator. As Lillian stated, ITC provides you with an intuitive tool to help you quickly identify the solution that best fits your needs. Simply follow these three steps as you see on the screen here to get to the result you're looking for. We've chosen a scenario today that is in alignment with today's topics, and I'll demonstrate the easiness and time-saving process it takes to render the results you would expect. So let's get started. First off, we're going to ask you to define your organization. For today's scenario, I'm going to select federal and tribal government, and then we'll proceed to step 2. Here you're presented with 8 distinct categories from which you can select the category that most interests you, and then you can drill down to get to the solution that you're looking for. My first selection is going to be part of hardware, products, and services. And as you can see, we have 5 subcategories presented here. I'm going to expand computing hardware, and I'm looking for desktop, laptops, notebooks, and I see it here. I can now select that option. I'd like to highlight as well, you can see with the plus sign, you can expand each of these to get a brief description of what each of them represent. I'd like to also highlight with the other solutions I'm going to choose the keyword feature, which will most likely be where you'll go. If you have already determined what your interests are, you can quickly get to where you're going simply by going through the keyword search. And in this case, I'm going to look for supply chain software. As you can see here, it immediately popped up. This one, I have one solution that meets that criteria. And I'd also like to highlight with the green leaf, many of our products and services are qualified to be a green IT solution. Now I'm looking for cloud products. Simply type in cloud and you'll see I have 15 matches. Most fall under the category of cloud computing services. However, professional services also offers some cloud solutions. I think today I'm looking for integration consulting services, as well as cloud products and services, O&M. Now I'm interested in security, system security specifically. And what I'd like to add to my criteria is system security engineering services. And each time you see I make a selection, it populates the field on the right. You can select up to 5 solutions for your criteria. Once you've made all of your selections here, now you can proceed to step 3. Step 3 will present you with a series of questions that you'll answer. It basically will refine your search and zero in on the solution that best fits your need. Certainly looking at the terms and conditions of the contracts and other criteria. I'm going to choose CONUS as the place of performance. Go to the next question. Excuse me. Self-manage for the level of assistance. For the objective, I'm going to choose no preference. For the contract type, I'm going to choose time and material and fixed price. And I'm not going into any detail. I think most everyone on this call are very familiar with these conditions. Select a contract type for period of performance. I'd like to start my that field's not working.
Bart, if I could interject too, I just wanted to highlight that the questions are really designed to gauge additional information concerning your acquisition needs and priorities. And it will enable Navigator to filter through our available solutions to best recommend a vehicle to meet your needs.
For this procurement, I would like to have a start date as of October 1. And thank you, Lillian. And we'll carry it through the end of fiscal year. All right, make that selection. You can also navigate through the calendar here. I just chose to manually enter it. Socioeconomic objectives, certainly important during the procurement process. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to choose veteran-owned small business and 8A certified. You can then select a dollar amount. Here we get to the last step, which will allow you to set the priority of your acquisition. In this case, I'm going to choose period of performance as our high priority, and you just simply drag and drop it. And now you're ready to view your results. For this criteria, you'll see we had a partial match found. That indicates that not one contract could satisfy all the requirements. However, I am going to be presented with multiple contracts. In this case, there are going to be two that have been presented to satisfy your needs. For the first match, we have the 4 solutions here for cloud solutions we chose, laptop supply chain management. You'll see that VETS 2 is a best fit. And you'll also notice with this symbol that VETS 2 has been qualified to be a best-in-class solution. As I scroll down, you'll see some of the terms and conditions associated with the contract. You'll have some hyperlinks taking you directly to those contract pages where you can get more information. And as you see below, the system security engineering services can be satisfied with the 54151 HACS SIN. I'll scroll on down and provide you that additional content. You can also click on this button here for a direct access to the NCSC, where you can submit your inquiry. We give you multiple options as to how we can assist you. And as Lillian highlighted earlier, we also have the chat feature here, which is readily available to you at all times. I have additional content, as you would see on the right-hand side in this window. We give you additional content around this activity. I'm going to go back to the results page, and I'd like to bring your attention as well to the footer, which is provided throughout your search, where we provide a lot of additional content to help you with your procurement needs. If you need help with your IT acquisition, for example, or CSDs, we have direct contact to these solutions, or excuse me, this information, direct link to the cybersecurity maturity model certification. We can directly link you to the NIST publications. And there's a lot of other content here that will be very valuable as you go through your procurement process. I'm going to take it back to the home page. And as you can see, again, the footer is displayed throughout the tool. And I want to thank you all for your participation today, and hand it back over to Lillian.
Thank you. And I do want to highlight that the links that Bart were referring to are designed to get you, immediate access to those NIST standards, the CMMC framework, as well as the acquisition planning package that was highlighted earlier today. And hopefully that will give you some templates and other resources to assist you during that acquisition planning phase. So in closing, I would like to highlight that GSA is working to improve our digital services, enabling you to connect more efficiently to our contract vehicles and resources to fulfill your agency missions. we recognize through feedback that you've provided in our customer surveys that the current digital experience is delivered through multiple overlapping tools and contracts, which can cause some confusion among our customers. So our goal is to deliver an improved and more seamless digital experience. We are working on implementing a new integrated acquisition buying platform that will be launched in the distant future. And we anticipate this will enable you to more efficiently search for those contracts, identify vendors that provide certain capabilities that you need to support your mission operations, and enable that on-demand access to the acquisition planning packages, the pricing tools, and all of our transactional platforms to facilitate the end-to-end buying process. So we look forward to sharing more information as it becomes available and engaging with you directly to solicit input on your desired needs or capabilities and to learn more how we can best serve you. So thank you all for attending today's session. And
so Lillian,
I'll turn it over to you for questions.
This is Ben, and we had a question from Frank Puente. He asks, will this change the GSA e-buy process, specifically the RFQ process, when trying to acquire software products?
Great question. It is not going to change the process through eBuy, but what we're hoping to do is integrate all of those various tools and provide you a more integrated, seamless experience from the initiation phase for your acquisition all the way through that evaluation and an award process. So we don't anticipate that the capabilities that are currently provided through eBuy will go away. We're anticipating that we'll provide you a more seamless experience and additional online support to guide you through that process.
Okay, and Liz, how many minutes do we have for questions?
Let's check the time real quick. If you guys have one more question, we can have time for that.
Yeah, we do. And it's from Dean Simmons, who asks, is the IT Navigator Solutions tool available or accessible to service contractors delivering a total solution to federal agencies or tribal nations?
Great question. And the answer to your question is yes. This tool is available and accessible via the GSA portal. It is open to all federal, state, local, and tribal government organizations. The solutions that are offered in the tool are based on, your authority to buy through GSA. So from what I understand, all the tribal government entities have full access to our service contracts, with the exception of the services that would be offered under the multiple work schedule program. I believe that's limited to state, local at this time. But we hope that you'll visit the tool and you can assess that, and you can verify that we have a full suite of service offerings available to our government organizations to facilitate your needs there.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for all the attendees. Myself, Charles Wingate, Supervisor Contracting Specialist, and Mr. Tom Smith will be giving you some information on the evaluation of SRIM in your acquisitions. Next slide, please. What is to-get? And a cheer, a scream, a holler, and everything else you can get, because we can finally use to-get. We are in the protest period, but we have authority to place orders. So we have been utilizing, I'll say our customers have been utilizing to-get. So thank you for the customers and also for the vendors that have been using to-get. And this is our overview. What is the second generation information technology to-get? And also what requirements and evaluation factors should you consider in solicitation? And the third topic we'll be discussing today is how can vendor risk assessment and monitoring be effectively incorporated into the strategy? Next slide. Okay, just a little background on 2GET. This is was developed in partnership with the Air Force. We're looking at, this was a replacement for their 6.9 billion contract from NetSense. This is only replacing the products portion of that vehicle. This is for products, and the IT hardware solutions will be available up under the 2GET, any related ancillary supplies and services, and it has a fully integrated supply chain risk management. And we think that this is the differentiator that separates us from some of the existing vehicles out there. The other thing in regards to the supply chain risk management, we have an army of individual operating analysts that are out on the ground and also virtually doing inspections to make sure that the vendors adhere to this. Next slide. Okay, use. I'd like to foot stomp on this, even though the Air Force is our key and our anchor tenant. This vehicle is available for all agencies, federal, state, local, regional. If you have access and you're authorized to use the schedules program, you can utilize 2GET, and we expect everybody to get out there and get them some 2GET. This is a mandatory use vehicle for the U.S. Air Force, so they're using it for all of their IT products at this time. Their regulation, and Mr. Smith will get into that a little later on. Contract type, this is a multiple award, schedules-based BPA, so it is off of our mass consolidated schedule, specifically the old Schedule 70 tag. And the period of performance is 5 years from date of award. We made the award effective, the period of performance is effective from 31 March 2021 to 30 March 2026. So we have a 5-year period of performance in this. We won't be exercising options, but we will be doing annual surveillance to make sure everything is proper. So we have good prices in there and the performance as well. Supplier base. This is contracting team arrangements. We have 9 awardees. There are 9 awardees, but up under the 9 awardees, they've teamed up with individual contractors as well. So we have a total of 79 individual contractors that are awardees on here under the 9 awardees. And for small business, we have a plethora of small business on this. So if you want to do small business set aside, you can definitely do a small business set aside on this instrument. We have other socioeconomic classes that you can do as well as you want to go down further than the small business, hub zone, service disabled vets, etc. Okay, the scope. Here are the SINs that are on the vehicle. And you can just look at that. Basically it's in the hardware, software, maintenance, and also the ancillary part. Estimated value on this, we're looking at $1 billion per year, 1.1 billion to be exact is our estimate going on there for a 5-year total of $5.5 billion. And I would like to reemphasize, this vehicle is available for use for all agencies, not just the Air Force. The Air Force just happens to be a tenant agent, the anchor tenant, but it's open for everyone. Next slide. Okay. Some of the products that are available on here, we have 4 particular line items. And I say these slides will be shared with you so you can see our first line item is a data center for compute and store. That's getting a lot of interest these days because of the stuff that's going on with all the cyber attacks, et cetera. Also have blend line item number 2, laptop, desktop. So that's for your basic end user device, and network devices in there as well. And the last item we have radio equipment. And also just in case you have any items that you're not aware of when you put your order in, the OLM SIN is there to assist you in that manner. Next slide. Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Tom Smith, and he will finish out the briefing, and we'll stay tuned for any questions to have. Thank you. Tom, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thanks so much, Charles. Appreciate the opportunity to be with everyone today. Going through kind of the backstage tour of the 2GET activity that Charles just kind of highlighted for you from the front end. So that'll be kind of what we're doing for the next 2 talking points. So next chart. And again, I'll reference back to session 1. So if you recall from Larry's presentation, he kind of showed you kind of the overview from a National Institute of Science and Technology, NIST standards, publications, references, all those reference points from a guidance perspective, from a 2GIT BPA requirement development and evaluation and solicitation process were incorporated into the vehicle. And so those are basically the premise and the standard for the requirements and the basis for the responses in the proposal. We pretty much wanted to address, just like it's been highlighted in both sessions so far, obviously the current events of today drive us to be more cybersecurity conscious and ensure that we're reducing the risk and mitigating the risk to the extent that we can, where we can. Obviously, IT products solutions is a component of that. And as you would suspect there, the two sub-bullets there under the second point, the specific threat vectors that we have our vendors focusing on are the counterfeit and the malicious code insertion activities. So again, that's where the preponderance and the control measures were focused on in terms of a fit for purpose type application for those that have a cybersecurity background and understand risk management framework and those guidance elements that Larry referred to previously. That's where we're kind of focusing with our activities with our vendor community. Again, a lot of the vendor community out there, whether they're the OEM, distributors, or resellers, many of them have history and past performance in that arena. And so again, we wanted to leverage that, bring that to the table and have them do what they do and control the areas that they are responsible for within the supply channel. One of the things we did early on in the requirement development process, again, like Charles pointed out, in concert with our strategic entity with the Air Force, was have them engage with us, have them be part of the evaluation and solicitation process to ensure that they were getting the outcome and the requirements and the tools in place that they needed. And so that was part of that. Elimination of refurbished, remanufactured products was a very low bar to basically address to eliminate the entry point or the door, which a lot of that gray market and counterfeit comes in through. So we've eliminated that. The basically the overall multiple award schedule, is basically incorporated that into their schedules contracts as well. So refurb, remanufactured products are no longer accessible through the schedule programs or through the 2GIT BPA vehicle. From a Trade Act agreement, again, those that use schedules on a regular basis know that TAA compliance is pretty much baked in and part of the schedules framework. And so again, leveraging that as well. But again, the point is TAA compliance is not supply chain risk management. It's a piece of it. From a country of origin perspective, if you're going to require that type of certificate with the product that you're buying, that's a piece of it. That's obviously a mitigation step in terms of where you buy. But again, supply chain risk management is much, much larger than that, a much broader holistic look, and we'll get into that in a couple of charts here. Next slide. Back up one, please. Okay, so again, some of the other things, again, we kind of look at, even though they're not highlighted or identified explicitly as supply chain risk management, a lot of the things with the tangible, physical, logical aspects of supply chain risk mitigation, include, property accountability, shipping, transportation, those type of things where you're tangibly touching and securing it from a physical standpoint. If you're warehousing, those type of things are part and parcel to most of the community of interest when it comes to the logistical aspects of it. And again, 2GIT has those incorporated within the requirements as well. Obviously those that provide products that exceed kind of the $5,000 threshold, and you support DoD customers out there, that is the trigger level that invokes the IUID and the radio frequency ID and all those extra tracking requirements for the products as they move through the logistic channels to get to the customer to fulfill their order. The other areas that we kind of focused on, again, just like Charles highlighted and Keith and Larry highlighted with the CMMC activities, cybersecurity breaches are kind of at the forefront in the news right now. Incident management, incident handling, incident reporting are very key critical elements and part of the 2GIT BPA responsibility and within their scrim plans for each of the vendors that are on the 2GIT BPA. So again, that is a high interest, high focus item with each party. So again, they are required to report to us anything that occurs. And so that way we have a responsiveness as a team, industry and GSA as a whole, to be responsive to that to ensure that we're addressing the issue. If it manifests itself. We've also integrated quality management systems, or ISO 9001, 2015 to be explicit, as a requirement on the front end to compete on the contract. So all those are integrated as part of the vendor's operations and business practices. And so that moving forward provides us that premise of, followed processes, documented processes and procedures in place. And then lastly, and we'll touch on here in a second, we're looking at from a holistic risk assessment focused standpoint, not just the cybersecurity pieces, but also the other elements within the environment from a governance, health, foreign influence, ownership, all of those activities with commercially available tools and partnerships with others. We're leveraging those capacities and those capabilities to, again, review and assess vendor performance across the board in that manner to ensure that from a risk monitoring, risk action activity that we're focusing on what matters in addressing issues as they arise. Next slide, please. Right, so as part of the section L&M, or the evaluation factors instruction to offers piece of it, it was integrated like it was referred to in session 1, security as the 4th pillar. So not just the cost, schedule, and performance or the experience side of it, but also measuring the security side of it as well with the scrim plans was part of the solicitation. We had a lot of those elements there highlighted. Won't read them all to you, but again, we talked about the NIST standards being a foundational premise of that. We talked about identifying, relevant experience with other activities within the government, and then we assess those in an acceptable, unacceptable manner in terms of requirements is what was stipulated in the evaluation and solicitation. Next slide, please. Again, won't read through this at all. So, you've got that documented for the record. This is just representing the factors and the control measures within the specific NIST standards that were highlighted from a fit for purpose standpoint, application to an IT product solution application from a use case perspective. So again, the vendors had to be responsive to each one of those as they applied within their, again, scope of influence in terms of their role within that supply channel process, whatever that role is. And again, each person's role is different. In some cases, some vendors wear multiple hats. And so they had to address how that applied to them in their role and in their span of influence. And so in doing that, that basically allows us to mitigate that risk exposure to the counterfeit and the malicious code, like we said. And again, they basically had to be responsive to those as part of the solicitation. And that was the premise and the basis for the acceptable, non-acceptable position. Next slide, please. Again, another aspect of the contract performance obviously is data deliverables. From a DoD customer perspective, that's obviously referred to as a contract data requirements list or CDRL. And so within that, we are having them address the awareness and training aspect, again, as a crucial first step, with the control measures, in addition to counterfeit material reporting, which is fairly commonplace with DFARS on the DoD side, as well as, like I said, the incident, if changes occur with their plans, they're required to update those within a specified period of time. And that includes both ownership, mergers and acquisitions as they occur, things change within those business relationships. They're required to identify those and document those. And then lastly, we've got additional over and above standard transactional data requirements as part of the 2GET BPA, where we're going beyond that to incorporate additional data elements for reporting standpoint down to the serial number level for the actual products with the invoices and the deliverable assets to the customer. So that's going to be a very important aspect of our overall provenance and component authenticity, objectives as it relates to those control measures. And that's basically how we're trying to get at that aspect of it. Next slide, please. All right. Additionally, depending on where you sit, obviously in the federal space as an agency, there are things that are DoD unique, and then there's others that are federal wide unique. From a section 881, that is a DoD requirement in there. That's where your DFARS come into play as it relates to supply chain risk management factors and the authorities that go with that for DoD customers to exercise as part of their evaluation process at their call order, delivery order level. And so again, those can be invoked and called out since they are referenced within the 2GET BPA. So as required for those DoD elements, they can leverage those. The rest of it, like it was referred to in session 1, under section 889B, obviously those are all fully incorporated into the multiple award schedules. The 2GET BPA vendors have all basically attested to and accepted those in their contract. So those clauses and provisions are there. If you need to reference those, obviously betasam.gov and soon to be, transitioning over to sam.gov. those annual representations obviously will then flow over to there as part of that, clause provision requirement. But again, acknowledge that some entities are in that yearly cycle, and they may or may not be updated on the beta.sam site yet because their annual attestation cycle is not up yet. So just keep that in mind. But we've captured all those in each contract vehicle for each of the vendors, and you can use the various e-commerce tools and others to search on the mass contract number reference to find them. The other things we're doing integral to GSA on the front end, we've got robotic processes in place where we're actively looking at Made in America, Trade Act agreement compliance, 889 compliance. We're screening catalog products and things and offerings out there in the e-commerce tools to pre-screen those out if there are flags associated with those, to then kind of be that filter mechanism to ensure that the products you're getting through the various processes are compliant with those laws as differentiated. The other things that customers out there, if when you're ordering, that you can levy above and beyond kind of the moderate posture that we've assumed, with the 2Get IT Solutions vehicle, is to consider using agency-specific product list. If you're DoD, you know that to be the DoD Information Network, or DoDIN approved products list. Other agencies have similar approved products lists. So again, you can levy those requirements at your customer task or call order level. And then in addition to that, obviously, everyone's aware of the new cyber EO that went into effect yesterday. A lot of those bill of materials type activities are now going to have to be addressed as part of that. And so, but again, now as a customer, you can obviously levy an invoicing or a bill of materials requirement, at your order level if your risk posture dictates that you want to do that. And then above and beyond that, if you're on the very, very low end of the risk posture or zero risk posture perspective, like nuclear community would be, for instance, then additional inspection, testing, certification results could be required at the order level if the customer dictates. And again, that is an additional layer of confidence and additional data and information for them to make their responsibility determinations for award. Next slide, please. All right, I'm not going to go through this. This is, again, just from a quality assurance plan or surveillance plan, because it's not commonly integrated as part of a products commodity type activity, but we've integrated it in. There's metrics and measures specifically associated with it that all the vendors have to meet as a part of their performance to the BPA. And so again, it basically focuses on repeatable, type or repeatable offenses. So basically that goes to the process maturation and the ability to know and capture information so that you can monitor it effectively. And then additionally, timeliness of assessments and reportings, just like with any contract deliverable, you've got those. So again, those are kind of the key takeaways from the quality assurance and how we've implemented that as part of our execution. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to touch briefly just a few slides on the execution on the operations side with assessment and monitoring. You're going to get much more of that in the next session after this one, so I'm not going to elaborate too much on that, but you'll get that in the next section with Mr. Zach Smith and Sam Navarro in session 3. So next slide, please. I kind of referred to it in passing with one of the previous charts, but again, we have partnered with our DoD CIO friends in a joint collaborative effort to bring in commercially available tools and resources to assist in the vendor risk assessment process, part of that activity. So it's an enterprise-wide focus. DoD deals a lot, contractually speaking, with the original manufacturers, out there. So they've got that purview and perspective on their side. We've got obviously the preponderance of the distribution and reseller channel on ours. And so the compilation of those two together gives us a much more broader holistic look of the end-to-end supply channel chain and give us visibility into those tiered relationships with suppliers, as well as 889 type relationships as well with those subsidiaries and affiliates related to those activities. And then also we bring in other tools to look at cyber hygiene, and how public facing companies and the websites and how they manage those. We then bring that part into the equation as well. So the job is obviously to equip the acquisition workforce, whoever the procurement official or agency is, that they've got as much information as possible to do their due diligence and make the right responsibility determination and weigh things appropriately. So again, part of that, like we said, it's a pilot effort this year. We're looking at, again, what continue on the good things based on lessons learned and adapt moving forward. But again, right now, that is a fundamental premise for how we're executing the program. And again, it's a great partnership with the DoD CIO group now, and we look forward to continue that forward moving forward. Next slide, please. So that said, yeah, that's kind of where we are. You kind of see how we're applying. Again, you'll get much more in the next session with Zach when it comes to the actual what are the industrial operational analysts that are performing that surveillance role, you know, on the ground from a continuous monitoring perspective, and he'll share some of that. But key to all of this, we started very early on in the front end, pre-award engagement with both industry and the customer to ensure that the requirements were developed properly and understood is obviously key to any acquisition. And so that's what we focused on. Again, incorporating the customer in that eval process, you know, is again an additional good lesson learned, best practice application. So obviously industry has different perspectives, market share, market brand, you know, protecting that image, that brand integrity is critical to them. So they have a motivation from a supply chain risk management to implement appropriately. And again, whatever that basis is, we're all here to try to improve it and make it stronger at the end of the day and secure the product for our customers. So we've got them in, incorporate them in the contract where applicable. You know, obviously make sure that there's accountability where accountability is due. Again, just like with risk management framework, those that you inherit from others, clearly document and attest to that, and then basically incorporate them where needed. Measurable metrics are key and important because, like I said, if you can't measure it, then it's kind of hard to grade somebody and hold somebody accountable to it. And then finally, best takeaway is obviously managing expectations. Again, you can't get to 100%. That's not achievable or feasible, right? For most of us to know that. So, but again, what we're trying to do is improve the risk posture as a whole and make it better than what it is. And so by integrating it into the contract vehicles, as we move forward across other government-wide contracts within the GSA family of services and vehicles, those will continue to be integrated in there. So again, as we roll out and evolve over the coming year and on multiple fronts, that we're incorporating SCRM everywhere we can to improve the security of our delivery to you, the customer. So I appreciate the time. And I think with that, that's the last slide. And we're ready to take questions.
All right. Thank you, Robin. And welcome, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get us started here, working into the next slide. Sam and I are going to maybe do something a little bit different here. We're going to try to kind of work back and forth through these different slides as we go through our discussion on post-award with supplier risk and supply chain risk compliance. So we're going to cover kind of an overview of some of the activities that we do related to supply chain risk management for some of our programs. You've heard a lot about some of the earlier sessions talking about compliance in supply chain risk management compliance being built into our acquisition solutions. And we're trying to go one step further beyond having a vendor simply saying, hey, I do this, you know, the SCRM requirement that's here in this vehicle, of course I do that. In a big presentation that you just heard from Charles Wingate and Tom Smith was about the 2GET vehicle and the 2GET BPA and some of the new requirements that are built into that vehicle. So what Sam and I are going to do today is we're going to go through talking about the 2GET vehicle and use that as an example to really get at a little bit deeper level about some specific activities that we're doing from the post-award side related to supply chain risk management and compliance. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sam. Sam, do you have some more to add to this slide?
For sure. Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Zach, for that introduction. And Zach's going to give you the compliancy perspective. I'll give you the agency perspective from a post-award perspective. And we're looking forward to take agencies through the post-award journey and how collaborating with GSA can help agencies manage SCRM risk through the life of their contract, show you why the solutions we have to offer can be trusted and how they could tie into your agency's SCRM capabilities as a perspective that we want to explain today. So, hey, as we see from current scenarios and experience, navigating through the complexities of today's SCRM environment and incorporating best business practices to manage the risk can bring us challenges. But guess what? As GSA, we want to be here to partner with you, whether you're federal, state, or local, in managing that risk after the award of your vehicle. So congratulations. We're at the part of the journey where you've awarded your vehicle. Now we're going to take you down the road of compliancy and what's in it for you as an agency.
Great, thanks, Sam. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so let's take that deeper dive here into the 2GIT surveillance. So we're moving beyond having a vendor with NIST compliance and that self-attestation of, yes, of course I am in compliance with that particular requirement. You heard in the earlier presentations that at the 2GIT BPA level, vendors have had to submit supply chain risk management plans on how they are going to implement controls based back into NIST for that BPA and for the execution of the BPA and the solutions underneath that. The group that I'm a part of is the Industrial Operations Analyst Group. And we've got industrial operations analysts and supply chain IT operations analysts, which I'll get into a little bit more detail later on. But our group is going to be performing those compliance checks to ensure that the vendors are following those supply chain risk management plans that they've submitted as part of obtaining the BPA. We also have talked a little bit in earlier sessions about using some of our DoD and GSA supplier risk pilot programs to help along the way. And an example of that where we're using some of our third-party information and utilizing some of the information that we have with our supply chain risk management experts in the organization, we're using that for our execution by helping identify which vendors are going to receive some of the supply chain risk management surveillance for the 2GIT BPA, and possibly what review areas that we're going to look into. Obviously, there's a lot of vendors on the BPA, and we need to find efficient ways, both for industry and for us, on when we need to have some of those interactions on evaluating the compliance. Another very important thing that you heard about earlier, but it applies into us as far as the SCRIM surveillance is there's going to be changes. We know that standards are going to change. Risks and environmental factors are going to change, impacting the 2GIT vendors and agencies as well. So when there are changes that happen, let's say there's a new security control that a vendor has to implement, we are actually going to evolve with that as well. So we've got these supply chain risk management plans that vendors have submitted, but there's going to be updates to those, and they're going to have to submit updates to us. So over the life cycle of that BPA, our evaluations are going to evolve as well, right? If there's a new control that comes on board, our future evaluations of that vendor are going to adapt with that as well and incorporate that into our reviews. And also, this is probably the most important part, that we're trying to use a very agile approach to this. This is a new BPA for us. It's a new BPA for vendors as well. But as we map out our different processes and how we're going to make this work, we're going to be working with our industry partners on managing that process to make it successful going forward.
And boy, staying agile and managing change is kind of a constant theme across the landscape when you look at supply chain risk management today from a customer perspective. But it's also imperative that you can trust the contract solution that you're leveraging to procure information communication technology. And GSA has a proven track record of protecting the integrity of the offerings of our contract. However, we believe that 2GIT is taking our cybersecurity supply chain approach to the next level. Aligning ourselves to CSCRIM best business practices, as Zach just alluded to, includes providing long-term cybersecurity agility and responding to supply chain advanced persistent threats immediately. What we want to let you know is no matter where you are in the maturity of your organization's CSCRIM program, you can trust that we will do our part in ensuring that the offerings meet 889 standards and align to your mission needs. So we want to make sure that they're secure and you can go ahead and execute on your vehicle, and we have your back on the back end.
Thank you, Sam. Let's go to the next slide. All right, let's take a little bit deeper dive right into how in the two-git world where we perform these reviews, how is it reducing supply chain risk for you as a customer? So I mentioned before our vendor risk assessment tools and also our SCRIM SMEs within our agency. We're going to get together to identify which of the two-git vendors are going to receive some of the SCRIM surveillance. That's going to derive some surveillance by our group, not only on who receives that review, but also what areas that we're going to want to look at. So for the purposes of this example, let's say we do go and do some surveillance and we identify where a vendor is not meeting a certain SCRIM plan, process, or procedure. We're going to take that information, bring that back to our contracting officer and our SCRIM SME team to figure out, well, what is the appropriate response on how to handle this issue with this particular vendor. And that response is going to range anywhere from some type of corrective action that a vendor is going to have to implement to correct that particular issue, to probably the more extreme area would be maybe an offboarding of a vendor from the two-git BPA. Tom Smith in the earlier presentation mentioned on one of the slides, there are mechanisms that are there for some different performance metrics that are there that could off-ramp a vendor from the two-git BPA if they're not in compliance in certain areas. And this would be one of them. Now, certainly off-ramping would be more the extreme. Most likely we're talking about corrective action that a vendor would be implementing. We'd be working with the vendor. However, either way, we're reducing supply chain risk there with our two-git vendors by following that process, which in the end is a better supply pool that's there for you as a customer when you're going to purchase from the two-git BPA. Sam, do you got anything to add to this slide as well?
Yep. I mean, if you're a customer and you don't take anything else away, we want you to make sure that you take this away from a post-award perspective. GSA, we're planning, we're surveilling, and we're responding to threats as they evolve. And as we have seen in previous and recent experience, supply chain threats are always evolving. Our ability to quickly identify vulnerabilities and bring innovative tools to the table to quickly remove these offerings is most relevant to the federal, state, and local partners who leverage two-git. The capabilities we bring to the table complement agencies' best business practices for supply chain risk to provide a hardened C-SCRIM posture, enabling the government to manage the risk. And as Zach's team will be taking the action to respond to a lot of these threats, on my side, the information technology category will make sure that whether you're a vendor or you're a customer, that you stay informed of the actions we're taking. So we're asking you to sign up for ITC's Assistant Commissioner's blog, sign up also for a community of practice if you're a federal agency. There'll be more information being posted on that on a C-SCRIM community of practice we're standing up. Also, social media. So our Twitter handle is @GSA_ITC. Of course, we have press releases and emails for distribution lists for if you're a CO that is using the vehicle. And last but not least, our National Customer Support Center. So for vendors and customers, 24/7 support. If you have a question regarding to a response we may be taking in regards to a C-SCRIM threat or activity, feel free to submit a ticket, respond to us. We'll respond as promptly as we can to any inquiry or question you may have from a vendor perspective or a customer perspective. We're just here to make sure once we take that final step of response that you're aware, you're informed, and you can take the proper steps to ensure there's no impact to your mission or to your business if you're a vendor.
Well, thank you, Sam. Before we go to the next slide, I just want to mention, this is one example, right? Pretty high level, but imagine this happening across all the two-git vendors in the supply chain as well, right? There's a lot of other examples of this taking place when we're talking about a lot of different vendors and a lot of different industrial operations analysts working with our suppliers. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, So what have we been doing internally to try to prepare to be able to meet customer scrim requirements related to the 2GIT BPA? I mentioned before, I'm part of the Industrial Operations Analyst group. We have been adding some new positions into our group to be able to better support this new mission for some of our compliance reviews. We've added some supply chain IT operations analysts to the group, and we're adding some more actually as we speak in that area as well. We've actually been upskilling some of our industrial operations analysts through some new IT training, new scrim training as well. So really working on the people side of being able to support this new role has been a big focus for us. We've also been working through developing and modifying some different processes. As we go out to, for example, as we go out and we review vendors and we find that particular issue, how are we going to, from a workflow standpoint, get the contracting officer involved with that and get the right technical experts and legal people involved to try to figure out what is that appropriate response. Been a lot of development and time spent on making those connections with those processes and those workflows. And from the system side, you can imagine bringing those people and processes together, really working through figuring out the details of how that will work out in a system. We're working through those things as well. A lot of efforts there. Sam, you got some, I know you got some stuff there to add to the systems.
Yeah, so in particular, if you're a customer, it's not just about awarding a contract and we're done, right? GSA, we're here to support you every step of the way. So as Zach alluded to, from a post-award perspective, we have the right subject matter expertise to bring to the table if we can support you after award a contract. And we have processes now in place, such as robotic process automation tools that enable us to quickly remove offerings that may be at risk. And then last but not least, the systems that are in place are going to help us modify your contract even faster and the base solution even faster. So we're looking forward to upping the game, quickly moving modifications to make sure your mission isn't impacted, but at the same time, we keep and remain a hardened cybersecurity posture as far as supply chain risk is concerned.
Thank you, Sam. Yep. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay. I want to expand a little bit on some of the other supply chain risk management and compliance activities. I mean, if you're a vendor right now in the multiple award schedules program, you're probably very aware of the IOA role performing compliance assessment at that base level multiple award schedule contract. But if you're a customer, you're certainly not involved with that process and maybe not even aware of that process. So another thing that's going to continue to go on is our industrial operations analysts and our supply chain IT operations analysts. We're going to be continuing to perform compliance assessments with vendors, looking at some of those base level MAS contract terms and conditions to make sure that vendors are following those terms and conditions. Those are going to continue with our vendors. And that's not unique to the 2GIT BPA. That applies to all multiple award schedule contractors. But just to expand on a few areas that impact the customer, some of the things that we're looking at is at the MAS contract level, you have there's a certain price that's been negotiated between GSA and that vendor. And then when you're going to buy from an MAS contractor, you should get that same price. If you're going to utilize the multiple award schedule vehicle, you should get that price or lower. So some of the roles that our industrial operations analysts do, we do some verification. We actually sample some of those orders to verify that particular contractor is offering you that price or lower if the multiple award schedule contract is being used. So there's some value add there for you where you've got this other layer piece of IOAs that are actually performing that. Same thing applies into our Trade Agreement Act evaluations. We're out there educating vendors about TAA. We are out there evaluating, does a vendor have the processes in place to ensure that there's some Trade Agreement Act compliance. Same with catalog management. When you go to our systems and you see GSA Advantage items, we want to make sure that vendors are appropriately displaying the terms and conditions, the correct price, and items that are actually on the contract when they're actually in those systems providing that information, and then also on their quotes and on their proposals. We're doing activities with vendors to educate them in those areas, as well as doing some evaluation pieces to make sure that they're in compliance there. One of the things that we're looking at this year is, we recognize that the multiple award schedules program and the GWAC program, there's a lot of vendors that have overlap between those. Could there be some compliance reviews with vendors that are in both of those programs to find an efficient way and process improvements on how some of that is managed? A lot of training has been going on also within the organization related to supply chain risk management. The acquisition workforce in the IT category, as well as GSA as a whole, we've been doing a lot of training in that area to try to upskill our knowledge in those areas to make it a better workforce for working in the environments and working on solutions that involve some of the more complex IT and IT security areas. One of the processes, I mentioned this kind of briefly before, but here's a very good example of some of our processes. If we do see a supply chain risk management event, and if it's a CO within our organization notices that, we've set up processes for that information to get elevated to the right people in the organization to come up with that appropriate response. And then Sam also mentioned the prohibited product removal, using RPA and using different tools to make sure when agencies are coming to buy from catalogs on our programs that these prohibited items are not in the programs. All right, Sam, that's all I got in this part. I'm going to hand it over to you to kind of check on our time here. Go ahead and take us home, and then we can get over into the Q&A session.
I'll take us home, Zach. Just like Zach alluded to, we're ready to partner with agencies as they adopt their CSPRIM framework. So as Zach alluded to, this is why we continue to innovate in the acquisition space by incorporating tools such as RPA to rapidly respond to the changes across the spectrum for information communication technology, which organizations procure. And this slide just talks to the fact that this isn't just a 2JIT thing. We're scaling this across the board, and we want to work with agencies to make sure the things that they buy are in alignment with cybersecurity best business practices and their framework. So we're here to support you guys, pre-award, post-award, or during your award. Looking forward to partnering with a lot of agencies who have joined us. Thanks again for joining us. We're looking forward to answering your questions.
And good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're enjoying your FAST 2021 conference. Like Robbie mentioned, my name is Daniel Kim. I am a branch chief with GSA's Information Technology category in the Customer Strategic Solution Division. But today, I'll be your host and your MC. I'd like to welcome you to the fireside chats of a day in the life, how to obtain and accelerate your IT security solution process. With the past, current, and ongoing cybersecurity attacks, breaches in the government and industry, it is a crucial time for us to be proactive in having elements of security built into how we buy services and products, instead of being reactive when things go bad. With the increasing numbers of cybersecurity legislation coming from the Congress, the executive order of cybersecurity, and the clear emphasis of cybersecurity coming from the current administration, our goal today is to bring awareness and resources to help you with your cybersecurity requirements and needs. Today, I'm going to set the stage of a customer scenario meeting that our panel members will be acting out, and here are the personas. So we have Eric, who is a contracting officer in his agency's IT contracting office. Last week, Eric's boss made him a lead contracting officer for the new cybersecurity service requirement. Kim is a GSA solution manager who partners with agencies' acquisition and program personnel to understand and listen to the requirements and pain points. Kim's goal is to help the agency partners to find the best options of GSA solutions that will meet the agency's need. James is a contracting officer who will provide that acquisition subject matter expertise and guidance on how to use the different contract solutions that will meet the need of the agency partner. Okay, now we're in the customer meeting. So Eric's coworker informed him how GSA provided her assistance with her previous IT service requirement. She recommended Eric to contact the GSA customer service director in their state Eric and the customer service director have connected. Now we're in our first meeting with Eric and the team.
Greetings, Eric. I'm Kim. I'm the Solutions Manager for the Information Technology category within GSA, and I've got a few questions that I wanted to ask you. Have you used GSA before?
You know, I haven't used GSA before, but some of the people in my office have. I'm taking over as CEO for our office's cybersecurity efforts, as the former CEO retired last month, and I'm trying to catch up where they were and what's needed for next steps.
Okay, excellent. In order to assist you and gain a little bit of a better understanding of your requirements, I just kind of wanted to know where you are in the acquisition process with your requirement.
Yeah, I was just told that we have several high value systems that we need to ensure. We follow our internal agency security policy, NIST cybersecurity levels. So I'm in the process of meeting with our internal stakeholders. Specific tasks that team has identified include ensuring compliance with the network security policies and procedures, security technical implementation guides, and that NIST Special Publication 853.
Okay, sounds like you're off to a pretty good start and a good understanding what you need to incorporate with regard to those NIST guidelines. What kind of market research have you done so far?
So we've done some previously, but I know the vendor would need to be able to develop a strategy for continuous monitoring of security control effectiveness and perform security impact analysis on any proposed changes to the system.
Okay. Have you done any market research, yes, like a request for information out to the industry partners?
Sure. Yeah, not yet. We're looking at to move quickly on this before the fiscal year end. So we need to streamline the process. How long will it take to do an RFI in GSA?
Okay, so that would depend on the complexity of your scope requirements, and anywhere from like it could be 2 weeks to 3 weeks, or even a week. It just depends on your complexity. So we do offer market research as a service, which is a free RFI service. Have you heard about it?
No.
Okay. So what I wanted to just kind of cover is that the MRAS is issued to several contract vehicles. So based on the compatibility of a scope review, we'll then send the MRAS out, and the ending result report allows for some data-driven decisions. And we would need a draft performance work statement. Do you have one that we could look at?
Yeah, as I've just taken over for this requirement, we're currently updating the docs and the solicitation, but we do have a draft PWS, and I can provide a copy to you.
All right, that would be great. So go ahead, and if you could send me that draft PWS, I'm going to loop in James, who's a senior contracting officer who does scope reviews and provides some recommendations. I'm going to have him take a look at that. So if you could send that my way, that would be great.
Okay, and that sounds good. And how long will that review take?
So typically a PWS review would be about 24 to 48 hours, depending on on the complexity and scope. But we also do have a rapid review process that can help expedite the review. And given in your imminent need, I'm going to recommend that we do the rapid review. What are some of your other contractual requirements or agency considerations that you've identified that are important for this requirement?
So you'll see in the PWS that this will be a firm fixed price contract, but we also need some flexibilities. Our strategy needs to be to allow for labor cleanse. This will also need to be a small business set aside. And we have some agency specific T's and C's and clauses to include in the solicitation related to our enterprise applications to ensure it's managed and validated accordingly. So how long will that MRAS take?
All right, so I would recommend, like, given kind of what you're describing, that we leave it out for at least 2 weeks. So what I'm thinking is let's work together on a list of questions. I've got some example questions, and we've got a template that I'll provide you that will assist with developing those unique questions for your market research. I'm going to loop in James, and he just completed your rapid review for your draft requirements. So James, I wanted to introduce you to Eric. Eric, this is James.
Hey, James.
Hi, Eric. Appreciate it, Kim. Hi, good afternoon, Eric. Thank you for providing all the information and allowing us the opportunity to look at your PWS. As Kim and you were wrapping up the discussion of your requirement, I was able to complete the review. And after taking a look, it sounds like it would be a perfect fit using the GSA multiple awards schedule information technology. Specifically, I'm thinking that the highly adaptive cybersecurity services special item number, or HACSIN, would be a great solution for your requirement. Do you have experience using the HACSIN?
No, I haven't heard of it before.
Okay. So it's under GSA's 54151 HACCIN. The vendors are awarded, provide services that align to your requirements, including risk and vulnerability assessments, risk management framework, security control assessments, and security systems engineering. Depending on the complexity of your requirement, you may discover a need to add even more specialized vendors who can provide system security engineering experience as well. And that'll help mitigate any complex network vulnerabilities you might have.
Okay, so how do I view those vendors on the HACCIN? You know, where can I see the experience, capabilities? And is there a way I can see the vendors and know which ones are most capable in that'll be able to provide these services?
Yeah, absolutely. I would start with eLibrary. GSA's eLibrary is helpful to review not only who the vendors are, but you'd also be able to review the associated terms and conditions, socioeconomic status, and even review industry partners' GSA price lists for comparison while you're building your requirements. It can also help you find a vendor within a particular geographic location if you needed to do that. After looking at the details of your PWS, I believe an additional value add offered from the HACCIN is that all the vendors must pass what's called an oral technical evaluation process that ensures knowledge and capabilities in 5 subcategories, which include the areas of high value assets, risk and vulnerability assessments, penetration testing, cyber hunt, and incident response. And GSA works with DHS CISA to ensure that these services meet the federal agency policy and NIST guidance requirements. So this will help in making sure that your requirement follows the latest standards.
And do you have any sample documents you could share so that we'll have like an idea of how to further refine our requirements for use of the HACCIN?
Absolutely. Yes, we have HACS related PWS and RFQ templates. And those are example documents that detail typical tasks, deliverables, cybersecurity background information for a variety of cybersecurity services. And these templates can be updated to align with your agency's specific needs. Also, I would recommend checking out the HACS Toolkit. That contains tools and information to make procurement of cybersecurity services easier. Within this, you'll find that HACCIN Ordering Guide, an independent government cost estimate, IGCE tool, and also the templates that I mentioned before.
Great, that sounds really good. So what if we have technical questions related to the HACCIN? Would you be able to assist with that?
Yeah, Kim, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, no problem. So, Eric, what I was thinking is I'd like to recommend that we set up a follow-on call with our HACCIN category. I want to be able to loop them in, and they've got that unique expertise for the HACCIN. So they're going to be able to provide you with a cybersecurity subject matter expertise, help you with the requirements, and maybe provide some recommendations for your performance work statement.
Okay, great. Is it possible to do a woman-owned small business set aside under the HACCIN as well?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Yes, in fact, there are more than 80 women-owned small businesses under the HACCIN, as well as other socioeconomic categories such as HubZone and service-disabled veteran-owned, all of which can help you in meeting your agency's small business goals. If you decided, it'd also be helpful to collect written information about the capabilities of those various suppliers prior to posting your RFQ. You can use GSA's solicitation platform, eBuy. That way you can issue your RFI, or as Kim mentioned, have GSA do it for you at no charge through the Market Research as a Service, or MRAS.
And can we add the women-owned small business to the MRAS?
Oh, definitely. Yes. So the MRAS survey automatically surveys small business vendors. So it then breaks them out by socioeconomic standards. So you're going to be able to see SDVOSBs, women-owned small business, HubZone, whoever responds, it'll be broken out into the various socioeconomic categories. And so you'll get a good listing of who those women-owned small business vendors that are responding. We work with the MRAS team when we're developing the RFI, just to ensure, and then we'll work together to make sure, that we've got all the questions answered, but we do have standard ones that are answered. And the responses were all going to be summarized in a report that's pretty easy to read the way it breaks it down. So the template what we're going to do is the MRAS template provides a high level overview of the requirement. Then we're going to provide a listing of like technical questions that'll be asked of industry. And we'll include some go, no go kind of factors that you've developed and any certain certifications, and then the draft requirements. And then when you get your report, there'll be links to capability statements. You'll see socioeconomic standards, and then the responses to your questions.
Great, great. So we have multiple task orders for this, or we anticipate multiple task orders for this requirement going forward. So as we're further defining the requirement and the solicitation, what flexibilities do we have for hacks?
Well, Eric, first of all, GSA can provide guidance on your agency's requirements along the way, really at any stage of the acquisition lifecycle, and help you determine what the best strategy is going to be. Do you know if you're planning to have a single vendor provide the hack services, or would you need multiple vendors?
No, we're seeking to work to one vendor for this.
Okay, okay. Well, with that in mind, I would look at the option of establishing a single award blanket purchase agreement, BPA, against the GSA multiple award schedule using the HackSend. This is a great way to establish a flexible solution, which offers a simplified method for fulfilling those repetitive needs, which it sounds like you're anticipating for your requirement. BPAs overall are a good strategy if you have a continuing need for those services over time, and are beneficial in streamlining your ordering procedures for quicker turnaround on Make It awards, all while leveraging the buying power of that solution and saving administrative time.
Nice.
Yeah, I've seen in the past where some agencies combine hacks with other mass sends, and that helps facilitate a broader enterprise approach to the program needs. That might be an option as well.
All right, appreciate that. So a single award BPA sounds like what we are looking for.
Yeah, Kim, do you have anything else to add on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So some of the other outstanding benefits of a BPA approach, Eric, are that you can include establishing future terms and conditions. Another benefit is that it's going to help decrease your PAL time through eliminating the need to post on Beta SAM or go through OMB. The BPA is funded at the order level. So once a BPA is awarded, you can quickly issue orders against the BPA. And if you receive any year-end funding that you'll need to spend quickly, which I know often happens to agencies, you're going to be able to place an order on the BPA right before year-end and obligate those funds.
Great. So for the solicitation RFQ, we need to include our T's and C's and clauses. So how will that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. Regarding your adding your own T's and C's and agency-specific clauses, that can be addressed also using the HackSend. Nothing in the FAR or in the hack solution prohibits ordering agencies from adding non-conflicting clauses from the FAR or from their agency supplements. Just include them in your solicitation along with any other clauses needed. Once you're ready to issue the RFQ, you'll incorporate the PWS, evaluation criteria, specify the type of order, accounting for either your firm fixed price or labor hour needs, include the intent to do the women-owned small business set-aside, and include any options and any other supplemental agency clauses as applicable. From there, you'll receive your quotes, evaluate in accordance with your stated criteria, and make award. And since it sounds like you'll be placing an order with the PWS, FAR regulation under 8.405-2 would apply, so you want to follow those processes when ordering. And you can do this, you can post that solicitation and go through that process either using eBuy or following your own agency procedures, just making sure that you follow the proper steps along the way, depending on the dollar threshold of your requirement.
Gotcha. Okay. And do you have any examples of other agencies that have used the HackSend?
Oh, absolutely. We can provide you with some examples, performance work statements that might help you with your statement of work, but I did work closely with the Army. They established a 5-year single award BPA approach for RMF requirements. So they conducted market research through the MRAS, and they were looking for a single award SDVOSB. They were able to find a very capable vendor that could support that requirement. And so they issued the RFQ, single award, ultimately awarded it to that SDVOSB vendor. And one of the key benefits that the Army found was that they could incrementally fund it because they didn't always know when they were going to receive funding. And then also to be able to obligate year-end money. So it worked out very well.
Great.
Yeah, Eric, another example I would mention is I've seen an order agency also needing RMF services, and the hack SMEs actually helped them in finding the vendors who were in the high value asset and risk and vulnerability assessment subcategories. RMF services may at times require one team or to identify the weaknesses and then a separate team to fix those weaknesses. These activities are not necessarily required at all times, as you probably already know. So a BPA allowed the agency to call for the actions only when they were needed. Because of this, it was more beneficial for them to have a multiple award BPA with multiple vendors so they could access RMF services when needed. So worked out good for them.
Very good. Yeah, appreciate that. So thank you, Kim and James. This sounds great. I'll be going back to the team with the Hexon and BPA recommendations. I appreciate your time.
Yes, you're welcome. No problem.
All right. Thank you, panel members, for demonstrating a customer engagement meeting that we do here at GSA with agency partners on a daily basis. It seems like Eric is well off on his way for accelerating his IT security requirement. Just wanted to, I know during this conference, there's a lot of information. We do want to, the reason why we did this scenario basis, the actual services that we provide at GSA to help with the requirements that you need. We want to thank you for taking your time today to join us. And we hope you gave some golden nuggets and some information and resources that we could provide. If you need assistance with your requirement, or would like to find more information about these free services that GSA provides, and also additional training, please reach out to your local customer service director by Googling GSA CSD, and it'll be your first search result. Thanks again, and we look forward to partnering with you soon.
We do have a few questions that are in the chat box that I see, a couple on acronyms, and then there was a question on lowest price technically available. Was that a standard for IT and cyber? James, I didn't know if you wanted to take that one.
When I hear that question, I think, you really got to assess your requirement and, look and see what's going to be the best strategy. I wouldn't say it's a default, but I think it's definitely a good option. But for some of the more complex requirements, I think that you may have to look to possibly do best value trade-off.
I'm trying to look at these. I think Cara is answering some of them. There were some questions on the acronyms, and I think those have been answered. Where can I get a list of all the acronyms? Oh, that's a good question.
I think a lot of the acronyms that we spoke to today, we will be covered in the HACS site.
Yep, highly adaptive cybersecurity, risk management framework, BPA blanket purchase agreement, MRAS is market research as a service. Just reading and I think there's some in the Q&A too. We have the Q&A questions.
Do you have any questions from the moderators that they saw that they'd like to share?
How do you update the requirements on scaling up certain needs and scaling down some other needs? This is from David. For example, we need more of one LCAT on a higher level, but less with another different LCAT on a lesser level. How should we convey that requirement via PWS? Are there other ways to make that change without updating the PWS for this matter? What would be helpful to provide input to the PAR on a PWS? I think, James, that has you written all over it.
Well, how much time do we have? I'd be more than happy to discuss that one in more detail if I can provide my contact information out. But initially, I would look at that at controlling it potentially at the CLIN level and doing either mid or max levels of the level of effort that you need for each labor category. And I think if you have some sort of labor hour or time and materials contract in place, I think that you can manage kind of control the amount of work that's performed against those through through communications with the contractor, through the, managing it under the stated ceiling of the contract. That would be my initial take at it, but again, I'd be more than happy to dive into that deeper.
And then the next question would be the link to the security services contract vehicle. That's from Everett. So if we could share that link to the security services contract vehicle. Then from Mona, hi, what do you typically look for in a PWS review?
You want to take that one?
Sure. I mean, unless you want to go ahead and discuss that. To me, what I'm looking for is a summary, of the requirement. You're going to list out all your various requirements, your terms and conditions. Maybe if you've got some of your QASP, your quality assurance plan that might be needed. What else, James?
Yeah, for me, I'm always making sure that everything's connecting and making sense. You've thought out, kind of the complete scenario, the complete situation. I think, you touched on deliverables, making sure that you've accounted for, quality assurance and measures, and making sure that everything lines up across what you've stated in the requirement versus what you're asking for in the deliverables.
Any performance metrics or deliverables? Greg asks, wouldn't the acquisition plan address any security audit deficiencies and the marketing plan identify the contractor qualifiers and rationale for any recommendations? Eric, do you want to take that one?
One more time.
Wouldn't the acquisition plan address any security audit deficiencies and the marketing plan identify the contractor qualifiers and rationale for any recommendation? So yeah, along with acquisition plan.
Man.
Any security audit deficiencies in your acquisition plan. So like if you maybe took some hits from GAO on cybersecurity and you're maybe trying to shore that up.
I'll let James roll.
The short answer would be yes. You'd want to address that in the acquisition plan. And as far as the marketing plan, identify the contractor qualifiers and rationale for any recommendation. Yes, absolutely. I think that would be a good time to address that in the acquisition plan.
Okay, and I think we addressed is the lowest price technically acceptable, the default for IT and cybersecurity acquisitions, and that would be no. Chris asked that again. I think we addressed that and best value, right, James? I think you addressed that one.
Yes.
Okay, can someone address the security levels GSA Mass and GWEX can operate at? And that's from Scott. So I think they're talking the FSMA compliance levels. So there's, I think that they operate at all the different levels. It depends on the vendor. So that would be kind of like a go, no go kind of question in your requirements.
Yeah, I would say at all FSMA moderate, FSMA high levels for high value asset items.
Are they listed somewhere that I can cut and copy them to the Word document? Are they listed somewhere that I can cut and copy them to the document? Maybe that relates, that's from, relates to the security requirements, I think. Does GPO, maybe we can get a clear, oh, she said, never mind, she got the answer. Okay, does GPO publish IT acquisitions? Does GAO provide reports to Congress on IT acquisitions?
I wouldn't have to make sure we get the full answer for, but depending on the reporting, I would say that it does. Let's see, does GPO publishes?
I would recommend to anyone who's got a cybersecurity requirement also going out to NIST, to the NIST website, and pulling down the publications on the guidance for cybersecurity and risk management framework, because NIST does publish some good guidelines on how agencies should buy cloud and cybersecurity. So those are good reference documents and publications to reference as well in your requirement.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you again, Robin, for the introduction. I'm here to share with you a little bit about our IT Acquisition University, which is an on-demand training platform for federal IT project managers and acquisition professionals interested in learning about innovation, emerging technology, and other IT developments that impact modernization and acquisition projects. We launched the ITAU, as we call it, on the Acquisition Gateway about a year ago, and it offers training topics such as IT security, cloud migration, emerging technology tools and tips for acquisition professionals, and federal IT modernization topics. We provide continuous learning points through the training sessions on most sessions, and those can be used towards maintenance of various professional certifications. Next slide, please. When you launch the ITAU on the Acquisition Gateway, you'll get to the welcome page and put a little arrow here with our email address, because you can pretty much ask us anything about ITAU, about the training sessions. If you'd be interested in getting in touch with one of the subject matter experts, or if you wanted to get some customized training for your agency, we'll get a hold of the customer service director and the subject matter experts that can help you set that up. Next slide, please. So this next tab houses several training sessions and videos. And there are little radio buttons that you can press on so that you can narrow down your choices. There are about a total of 31 sessions on the ITAU right now. The radio buttons are advanced acquisition techniques, basic IT information, e-tools, emerging technology and IT modernization, and then of course our favorite topic of the day, IT security and supply chain risk management. Next slide, please. When you launch one of the training sessions, this one happens to be hosted by Larry Hale from a previous live event, Improving Cybersecurity Through Acquisition. You will find a little button at the bottom of the page where you can take a quiz for continuous learning points. If you do not see this little button, there could be a couple of reasons. You must be signed in to the ITAU through your OMB Max ID, and you may not see it if you've already taken a quiz and passed the test. So those could be reasons for that. So go to the next slide, please. This is what one of the quizzes look like. There's somewhere between 3 and 7 questions on these quizzes, depending on the length of the session. And you'll have to pass it by answering all 70% of the questions correct. After that, we have automated the CLP issuance, and it happens about once a week. So yeah, about once a week. And if you don't receive it, check your spam email box. And if it's not there, please feel free to reach out to us at the email address I showed you earlier, itau@gsa.gov, and we'll be happy to research that for you, and we can also issue them manually if needed. Next slide, please. This tab is for federal only training videos, which means you must have an OMB Max ID to be able to view them. Otherwise, the other training sessions on the site are open to the public, to industry, anybody else who would like to take a look at the training sessions. Next slide, please. On the contract-specific training videos, we've housed several of our delegation of procurement authority training for government-wide acquisition contracts and for the enterprise infrastructure solution contracts. There are other training sessions on here from the Federal Mobility Group. There's some webinars from some live events on EIS, the Enterprise Infrastructure Solutions contract, that you can view here as well. Go to the next slide, please. And then we just loaded about 22 ITC highlight videos. These are just small, short 5 to 7 minute videos that gives you the snapshot of a specific topic. So you can view those at your leisure. And if you want to a deeper dive into it, you can look at the other tabs to see if there's a larger training session on it. And then if not, you certainly can reach out to us and we'll be happy to get your hold of a SME for you that can give you some more information on that topic. These are not CLP certified, but they are fun little videos to watch. So we encourage you to watch them all. Next slide, please. On our additional material tab, you'll be able to see articles, but you'll also see some of the slide decks that we have access to for the training sessions that we have provided, so you can download those training sessions and review them at your leisure. Next slide. And here you only see one event here. We wanted to highlight today's event, but if you go out to the site today, you'll actually see, I think there's five live events, upcoming live events that you can register for through this site. So we encourage you to do that as well. I know for right now, there are some delegation of procurement authority training for government-wide acquisition contracts. And then there are some cloud migration or how to buy cloud sessions that are upcoming that you can register for. Next slide, please. And because today's topic is on IT security, I wanted to highlight a few of the IT security training sessions we have. Improving cybersecurity through acquisition, which is hosted by Larry Hale, who you heard from earlier today. And then we had a previous live event on IT security and emerging technology virtual summit. That one offers 3 CLPs as a 3-hour session. And then we have securing your mission critical systems. This one will give you more information on the highly adaptive cybersecurity services special item number that you heard about in the fireside chat earlier. Next slide, please. And then for the acquisition community, I wanted to point out which delegation of procurement authority training we have listed. We have them for Alliant 2, for the Enterprise Infrastructure Solution contract, for VETS 2, 8A STARS 2. And I wanted to let you know also that the 8A STARS 3 delegation of procurement authority training is in the works and will be posted fairly soon on the site, but they are registering for live sessions on that one as well. So you can reach out to us if you need information on that. Next slide. And then additional resources that you can find outside of the ITAU is, of course, the GSA.gov IT acquisition planning packages that we talked about earlier during this session as well. Next slide. Again, I want to thank you all for attending today, and please reach out to us at ITAU@gsa.gov with any questions or if you have trouble finding the site. Appreciate your attention.
Great, thank you, Birgit. Here's another quick question for our attendees. Have you visited the IT Acquisition University before? Okay, just a couple more seconds and then we'll end this and see our results. Looks like actually quite a few of you have not, so this may be a great opportunity to check that out and see what you think of it. If it might help answer some questions for you on certain topics. And in the interest of time, our team will have to review any submitted questions, if there are any, and provide those answers in a Q&A document following the event today. Back to you, Robin.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Birgit. For the final session today, it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Beth Foles, Category Management Business Manager, Ms. Rosa Underwood, IT Specialist, and Mr. Justin Morgan, IT Specialist. They'll be sharing trends in emerging technology. Beth, Rosa, and Justin, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Robin. So anyway, this is kind of really a timely discussion considering, you know, some of the things that we've been talking about today. The executive order that just came out on cybersecurity, which I have here, I haven't read yet, but I do have it. And then, you know, also, you know, of course, the most recent attack, which, you know, was related to the Colonial Pipeline, you know, that cyber attack. And then, you know, before this executive order came out, Meritalk had reported that 93% they agreed that SolarWinds breach should be the motivation to completely rethink federal cybersecurity. And so with that in mind, I wanted to ask a few questions. So I'm going to start with Rosa. Open the door for agencies to use emerging technologies such as like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and intelligent automation.
Hi, Beth. Thank you for that question. Well, IT security has been enhanced most notably by AI and automation, but those two elements require an optimum environment to be truly effective. AI and machine learning tools, for example, build and analyze user edge device profiles and spot anomalies, like in the case of threat hunting. AI products can analyze traffic to learn and what is considered normal patterns and apply automated logic to defend or report inconsistencies in that network traffic. A SOAR, or security orchestration, automation and response solution, for example, performs data analytics, automation, and dashboarding. Networks must be capable of handling very large volumes of data, and the networks must be able to quickly analyze that data. Technologies like SD-WAN and cloud use AI to determine where best to send network traffic based on policy, and depending on the configuration, they automatically adjust to optimize traffic flows. Through the community of tools collecting and analyzing patterns to determine what is acceptable and unacceptable, signature updates are developed and deployed at a more frequent cadence to ensure the tools remain effective, with a readiness to apply the most current protections as warranted. But not all automatic rules should be permitted. Some rule sets to services like content filtering, for example, could cause certain websites across the enterprise to function incorrectly. Agencies must assess the risk versus rewards to determine what is the best way to securely deliver on mission objectives.
Great, thank you very much, Rosa. For the next question, I'm going to turn to you, Justin. How does network modernization help agencies create a more secure network infrastructure?
Thanks, Beth, and good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, when agencies go to modernize their network or look at modernizing their network, it kind of forces them to rethink why they're architected or constructed a certain way. Was it for a specific business need or business model, or was it to achieve some kind of compliance? A lot of times in the federal government, it's that compliance, but that's been changing. And the executive orders that came out to improve cybersecurity, the nation's cybersecurity, is definitely going to take a good effect at that, with their focus on more move to cloud and zero trust network architecture and architecture as a whole. But most of the modern network topologies are more focused on the policy enforcement. And when we say policy enforcement, it's kind of the combined firewalling, your IDS, intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems, your web traffic, where you break it and inspect it, where it's like, if it's HTTPS, it's technically encrypted, but you're supposed to break it and inspect it to make sure everything is going on good there. And things like your network access control. Is your endpoint supposed to be on this network? Do you have the right patch level? Those kinds of things. And that also includes the ID verifications along with that. But the idea with the policy enforcement points now with network modernization is to get those types of controls closer to the data, the source of the data, versus like the centralized network architecture of the current and some people's past, particularly in the corporate sector. And again, there's been this big push for user experience. So you've heard CX or customer experience. That's the big key now for companies and also the federal government when we're delivering our services to the public. So we're supposed to or need to start thinking more like the commercial sector when it comes to service delivery and making sure that customer experience is key. And I know there's large focuses on that. You heard from Sam Navarro earlier, who heads our CX shop here in ITC. And basically, the idea is getting the data closer to the user and getting the security, which means more points of security than the traditional single or maybe double perimeter or whatever. But now there's multiple instances of security. When you modernize and you apply it near the data to deliver it to the customer. And I'm sure people have heard edge computing and the Gartner term, SASE, Secure Access Service Edge. That is basically this idea of getting the data closer to the edge of the network to the user so that they go closest to them to access the data for that better customer experience. Cloud service providers are working with other service providers to make sure that that customer experience and that data is closer to the edge. Now, modernization, we're talking about break-in and moving data around and having multiple entry points. That doesn't necessarily mean decentralization. It definitely depends on your agency's mission and the overall risk appetite. In the end, an authorizing official has to sign off on that for your agency. And if they're not comfortable with, or the mission doesn't well support having multiple access areas, it's something that people need to take a look at and consider strongly. With the big push coming, and we'll get into zero trust and more software-defined WAN here in a minute. But yeah, there's going to be the authorizing officials and your CISOs throughout the agencies are going to have to take a real good hard look at their current architecture, what a modern one looks like, and just basically what their mission will allow them to move to.
Great. Thank you so much, Justin. Another question for you. How or why should agencies consider using SD-WAN as part of the network modernization efforts?
Yeah, thanks, Beth. Yeah, I started to go into that. But yeah, the software-defined wide area networking, which is basically traditional wide area networking is how you connected all your sites together in a common private network. Well, now you can spread that out more and have multiple types of transport versus the traditional way of doing it, and not 100%, but a lot in federal government is MPLS backbone and multi-protocol label switch. Anyway, not to be too acronym, because we're trying to break down the acronyms here, right? Sure. But one of the things that GSA did, yes, you can leverage these other types of transport, but what does that mean? So we did a study, our team did, and there's potential cost savings of up to 44% for large agencies, 42% for medium agencies, and 33% for small agencies, based on the savings analysis that we did compared to what the traditional transport mechanisms on our current contracts, like networks and EIS and those types of telecommunications contracts. When doing the math and looking at doing software-defined wide area network or SD-WAN, you can go with broadband internet, which is a very cheap service that is significantly lower cost than, say, an MPLS network with all that management and their specialized circuits. And when I say specialized, there's legacy ones out there, your T1s, your DS3s, and then even though a lot have converted to Ethernet, those are still fairly expensive. Now, there's a reason they're expensive, and that's for availability and performance. but that's where the joy of SD-WAN and some of the automation and the machine learning and artificial intelligence that's built into these platforms come in, because you can set a policy for specific types of traffic, and basically the control unit of your SD-WAN implementation will sit there and pick at a particular site based on what's going on where best to send that traffic. And if it's generally like just basic like internet, send it out broadband. Use those less expensive circuits, which is a lot of your commercial traffic, or excuse me, your traffic on site, and also within your remote access. And yeah, there's also the deployment aspect with SD-WAN. Basically, a lot of the companies, the majority, have the zero-touch approach for the deployments. You basically can ship a device to an endpoint, and the person at the site can connect it to the network, and it'll find the controller, pull down the policy, and begin functioning as that site's, for lack of a better term, perimeter or policy enforcement point. And the central policies that you can handle from the controller, you can have the big overarching one that applies to everyone. And then you can have site-specific ones for traffic or even certain types of websites people are allowed to go to or not allowed to go to. So you can get very granular with a software-defined wide area network. And with the cost savings there by being able to leverage lower cost transport, it makes a lot of sense.
Great. Thank you so much, Justin. So next one, I'm going to pick on Rosa here. Rosa, according to Gartner, by 2023, 60% of enterprises will phase out most of their remote access virtual private networks, VPNs, in favor of a zero trust network access. What will a VPN-less network look like?
Oh, a VPN-less network. That would be so wonderful. How many times have we had issues with VPNs in the middle of a conference call, or excuse me, a video conference or a big meeting? Well, you know, as a VPN-less network would allow for a quicker and more secure access to the data. And Justin kind of touched on that a little bit with regard to SD-WAN. It's less costly as well. With VPNs, user access is to a central location for every application. And that traffic can put stress on the VPN equipment. Not to mention you have to have a team that, you know, can support the VPN equipment as well. There are scenarios where you don't need a VPN to access certain resources, such as video conferencing platform to attend, you know, webinars and demos such as this one. A good case for reducing VPN traffic back to a central location would be permitting direct to cloud access for users. Like I said, applications like web conferences, email, and file sharing are constant traffic streams that can be offloaded from the agency network to remote workers, for example. This can be accomplished by enabling an always-on type of client with, for example, split tunneling, which where the secure traffic that must be secure all the time uses a tunnel, whereas the web traffic does not necessarily need to. VPNs will be around for a while, I would say, in the federal space, but in some instances, VPN-less applications like, for example, Citrix Workspace are being deployed for more direct, secure access. So looking at a zero trust architecture, the network access can potentially be from anywhere. Network perimeters where filtering is done, shift to a policy enforcement points closer to the data and the client itself. VPNs can, so that's, you know, there's especially with this cyber EO that was just recently released, there is a big shift, a big movement toward zero trust. And you'll start seeing more and more ways of achieving a true zero trust architecture or model.
Great, thank you, Rosa. And following up, Justin, another question related to zero trust. A zero trust security strategy consists of different elements. Can you discuss some of the elements that make up a zero trust solution?
Yes. First, I'll talk about the principles of a zero trust architecture, which you basically have your data, then you have your assets that access the data, and that can be a machine or a person. Then you have the network or the transportation to get to that data, whether it's over the internet, the private network, however that may be. Then you have the identity of that asset. And again, it doesn't have to be a person. It can be a machine, a role of an application, all these different things. And then you have the policy and governance. And this is that policy enforcement point again, where you're basically putting rules to your endpoints and your network edges, and even sometimes directly on the device that one of the assets that's being accessed, with these policy and governance rules that say who can access them, for how long, and for what reasons, and from where. So yeah, there's this again gets at that AI ML, and when you're looking at the patterns of what's considered normal access and what's abnormal. And zero trust actually helps with that, with the constant reauthorization of access. And there's an example of, I say like the movie theater example. In the traditional movie theater, and like this today, if we ever go back, but yeah, I think they're starting to, or we are starting to. You generally go to the front and you give your ticket to the person at the front and they let you in. And you can go in any door, sit down for any show. Potentially, if you're sneaky, you can sit through multiple shows. Well, that's kind of like the old perimeter where you got past the one guard and you're good to go. And no one's really checking on you, kind of thing. Whereas on a zero trust type solution or movie theater example, you would have your ticket, which is your authorization. And then you would go to the door and you would have that checker or that policy enforcement point say, hey, are you supposed to be here at this time watching this exact movie at this door? And they'll be like, okay, yes. And then they'll let you go into the movie theater. And then as you're sitting down watching the movie, depending on what the policy is, they'll come tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, are you still supposed to be here? Are you still allowed to watch this movie? Can I see that ticket again? That's kind of the extra things that are going to happen with a full zero trust implementation. And it's breaking it down to something like that kind of gives you the idea of the shift of where the I guess the policy enforcement, the access is going to be moved from like the traditional to directly as close as you can to the data or on the data itself, the asset holding the data. One thing that we also hear is, well, how do I buy zero trust? What is my solution? What can I buy? Well, zero trust is a framework. It's a mindset. It's a mentality shift from like traditional data access models. There's not really a zero trust solution or product that you can just go buy and you're good. It's constructed out of many different products, some of which you already have, like your identity management platforms. Some of these network access control and VPN, if you enable things like split tunneling, like Rosa said, and your endpoint security suites, things like that. Those are all pulled together, and you pull those together to become the zero trust framework. But the number one thing, and again, it gets back to the principles, and data was the first one and asset was the second. There's a reason for that. You got to know what data you have and what it's on and like where it is and who needs access to it. That's the only way you're going to be able to build the policies and governance around zero trust architecture to implement in your organization. I could go on and on about this, but I would say that with the recent executive order, again, to parrot that, came out yesterday, but this is going to force a lot of folks to go take a look at the NIST 207, which is the zero trust architecture that it's final guidance or policy from NIST. They have pillars and they do a great job breaking it down into the different ways to look at it and the components. Highly recommend that folks go take a look at that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Justin. I really like the movie theater approach. And now I'm like kind of wondering, what does Justin do when he goes to the movie theater? You know, is he going around to all these different movies and seeing them all? I'm not so sure. So I don't know. I'll have to ask your kids one day. So
you know, when you were a teenager, Beth, when you were a teenager, how many times did you or your friends or anyone that you know just sat in a movie theater all day long and did nothing but watch movies?
I have no idea what you're talking about at all.
I got no comment on that.
Right.
One thing, if you don't mind, I want to add to what Justin was saying about the data. Yeah, it's data centric, and you cannot protect what you don't know you have. So you have to understand what data you have, what categorization it's in, and the location of that data.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rosa. And so with that, I think we have just a couple questions, and I think Jim Russo is going to help us answer, you know, a couple of the questions. So with that, we'll turn it over to the questions. And Jim, do you want to help us out here?
Okay. Thanks, Beth. And yeah, I think if I ran the movie theater that you guys were in, once you got into the theater itself, I'd lock the door behind you. And then if you had to leave for any reason, you'd be going out into the parking lot. So you come back in and re-authenticate through the lobby. So that's the way I can do it. But
that's a good idea.
Anyway, that's kind of draconian. So it does kind of show you how you've got so many levels of options, you know, when you're trying to plan for and architect a zero trust solution. So, you know, Justin mentioned that it's an emerging technology, but, you know, it's not a product. It's something that you have to figure out how you're going to deploy it, you know, what your parameters are. So I guess a question for the panel is, what strategies do you suggest to the people listening here in terms of how do they go about acquiring a zero trust solution? You're using a specific contract or just general, you know, best practices on how you get a zero trust solution.
Yeah, Jim. And that's, yeah, we were kind of getting on that a little bit, but the first thing is your data and where is it, who needs access to it, and really from there, that's the concept of zero trust is you're putting guardrails around the data. It's not around the network boundary, although there is still aspects of that, of course. But the first and foremost is getting a good feel for your data, and that's with working with your system owners and heck, even your records management folks to make sure that you guys understand what is your FSMA reportable systems, what data they have on them, what levels is that data, who requires access to it, does it require any specialized access? To me, that's the framework of starting, because a lot of there's a couple different ways of looking at this, and the traditional approach to network security, and I'm going to steal this from a colleague, is the peanut butter approach, where you just smear it across everything equally. And that in a zero trust environment is not necessarily the best approach because of cost and the ability to implement. And when you start piling up these licenses, they get very expensive. If you don't need to put that level of protection on this data versus that data, it's a cost decision, but it's also a risk decision. Of course, we're talking about data a lot, but the identity and access management that you have within your organization. I mean, we in the federal space, we all know about ICAM, or identity configuration access management systems. We were supposed to have those in place years ago, where there's like the central source of truth for who is what and what they have access to and how they're granted access. Really getting your ICAM together is going to help too, and making sure you understand where all the assets, all the people, and all the various data access patterns are clear and understood. Only then can you really start building policies to figure out what it is you need to secure and how. But yeah, it's not a simple shift, obviously, because it's changing. You're changing from that perimeter based, I'm protecting my network, to now I'm protecting many, many different things at the same time with various different policies based on all these different factors. It can get pretty deep. But again, that's where, and I'll punt this a little bit to the NIST 207 and the recent ACT-IACT report that just came out. Please look those up and read through them. They're not difficult reads. There's some diagrams and some goodness in there to help drive the points home. Jim, did I touch on everything or not?
Oh yes, more than enough. It's
okay.
Really just a structured approach. And in a lot of ways, it's the same as you would apply to going into any new, deploying any new type of technology. So it's really common sense and best practices is got a lot to do. We've got a question from the audience here that I want to read and put out to the panel, and then we'll go back to Beth because we had a few other questions that we prepared for the panel. So this one's from James. It says, and especially since Beth and Justin now brought up the cyber executive order. With cybersecurity being a major topic, how can IT acquisitions lobby to Congress to pass legislation to better secure agency networks? So we've seen a lot of executive orders, we've seen a lot of OMB memos, but the question is, what can we do in terms of our acquisitions to get that more into law? And I have a few ideas on that, but I'll let the panel attack it.
Well, I know within GSA, there are a few initiatives ongoing with, looking at the FAR, possibly, what can be modified. And it's a long process. It's a long process. Unfortunately, as breaches continue to happen, incidents continue to happen, more and more focus is put on, ways to look at, introducing new executive orders, laws, and so on and so forth. So it's an ongoing effort, looking at milestones and reevaluating lessons learned from previous incidents, but it will take some time. Justin, you have anything you want to add to that, or?
Yeah, I know there's tons of that in the executive order, and
yeah,
we within ITC we're going to be releasing an RFI for consumption-based cloud services and trying to see what's out there. And the idea is that will drive a FAR change. So that's ongoing. We're going to get the responses, of course, and then adjust accordingly. And those who have read the executive order, you can see tons of stuff in there where GSA is supposed to update FAR language, update tons of things within their vehicles and offerings. And there's a lot of FAR nods. If you just search FAR in that thing, it comes up quite a bit. So I would say that it's definitely in the crosshairs of the new administration to correct those things, James.
Okay, yeah, and these different policies, directives, and executive orders, they tend to build on each other, going back to, pick a date, the yearly calendar for that. I know a lot of this feeds back into Cloud First and Cloud Smart, and the IT modernization report to the president. And so it's sort of building, these build on each other. And as Justin says, there's always a segment, even with the recent memo on IPv6, moving that forward. There's a tagline in there that says, what FAR language do you recommend that should be implemented? As you just said, that tends to be a long process, but that's kind of our lever to use to get something into law. Beth, I'll pass it back to you because I know we had a few more questions for the panel.
Yeah, another question. I think this would direct this one at Rosa. How do you think emerging technologies plays a role in the supply chain risk management?
Oh, perfect timing for that question. I think there's two ways. I think there's two ways to answer that question. One from a utilization perspective, and secondly from a compliance perspective. So I'll look at the first one, the former first. So from a utilization perspective, a good example of how emerging technology is being used in the acquisition process is, performing the market research. There's been a couple of discussions early on about MRAS, or Market Research as a Service, which is offered through FAST. It employs RPA, robotic process automation. And what it does is, RPA is used to deliver targeted market research, and it provides a summary of industry data along with the list of vendors on GSA contracts that can fulfill the specified requirements. If you look at it from a compliance perspective, when evaluating emerging technologies, or any technology for that matter, supply chain risk management, or SCRM, is a critical component to operationalize the new software, the firmware, the hardware, etc., to ensure potential threats are not introduced into the network. Risk management and the cybersecurity frameworks, which we mentioned, published by NIST, and other controls are the first line of defense. We also have to do due diligence to check for prohibited telecommunications equipment and video surveillance video surveillance equipment. Say that once. As outlined in FAR Rule Section 889 of the NDAA.
Great, thanks, Rosa. And so I really want to thank everybody for their time today. And if you have other questions, if you ask, we'll work at getting those answers back out. And of course, if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to your CSD. We're all here to help you all, accomplish your missions. And anyway, we're just really happy to be here to help you. So I thank you all very much. And thank you, Rosa and Justin and Jim. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Robin or Liz. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Beth and Rosa and Justin and Jim for joining us. Really appreciate all your feedback. And here's another couple quick questions to close things out on this one. Within the past 6 months, have you completed any cloud services training? I'm going to end this one in just a few seconds here so we can stay on focus point and wrap things up. Because we have Laura Stanton coming to talk to us in a minute or two. And the results are no, we have not completed this, is the majority of folks. And let's go ahead and do one last quick poll question here. Get a pulse on within the past 6 months. Have you completed any training courses related to emerging trends? Sorry, emerging technologies. And we've got some great answers coming in on this. And I'll go ahead and end and share this poll as well. So the pulse is high on no. So that's interesting feedback. Thank you so much for participating in that. And folks, we are in the home stretch, and I'll let Robin go ahead and introduce the next speaker.
Thank you, Liz. To close out today's events, please welcome Laura Stanton, Assistant Commissioner for the IT category. Ms. Stanton, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Robin. And thank you to everyone who has been taking part in today's event. I had a chance to catch some of the presentations, and between listening to the discussion about using Justin's example about using the movie theater, and then his second example about using peanut butter, I began thinking that he might be missing getting out a bit. But the reality is it's a great way to describe the difference between perimeter security and zero trust and what a zero trust architecture brings. So just want to say thanks to him for really helping drive it home in a way that brings us all back to our teenage years. I also want to thank all of the attendees for taking time out of your schedules to attend this training event. I know that the recently signed, yesterday's signing of the executive order on improving the nation's cybersecurity. There's a link in the chat if you didn't have a chance to see that, made today's event especially timely. There's a number of actions in there, a number of steps. We talked about the federal acquisition regulation upgrades, and I know that there was mention of the emphasis on zero trust architecture and other things that has a number of actions to protect and secure our IT systems. It feels lately like in the news that we're hearing frequent updates of breaches, and that always brings the reality home that we're in a federal IT world that we're looking for ways to ensure that we have our systems protected and secured. And we're continually evolving to make sure that we can respond to the ever-increasing threat environment and make sure that the customers who of GSA also have the support that all of you need in developing, adjusting, and enhancing all of your systems, and that we're providing the services, the contracts, the products, and from what you just heard, the subject matter knowledge to be able to strengthen your IT security postures for both your agency and the American public who you're serving. So today's event, I know, covered how we create some of these solutions, how they're applied. It went from talking about the CMMC at the beginning, and the NIST security standards have certainly been threaded in throughout the day. But also how we've worked to make sure that that we have Section 889 built into our contracts, how we have CMMC built into the solutions that we're bringing to the federal marketplace. You also had a chance to hear about the highly adaptive cybersecurity special item number on the schedule, and that is going through a special evaluation process to make sure that we're bringing that right talent and experience when buying the support services for your high value assets. This last panel really went deep into emerging technologies and what's being done in that arena. So you can be confident that when new technologies are coming out, GSA is working to bring these new tech solutions in, and that we've done that necessary work to enhance your security needs and incorporate it at the contract level. And we also talked about the acquisition planning tools. When Pam Mines kicked this off a couple of hours ago, I heard her talking about the acquisition planning packages that the teams have been putting together across not only the IT category, but all of the categories to help make sure that we're giving you the resources to be able to meet your mission and deliver the right sets of capabilities to you. We're continuing to partner with all of you at the agencies and industry to build these new solutions and strengthen and benefit the programs and contracts. So with that, let me just say thank you so much to everybody for staying throughout. I know it was a long afternoon, but it was also an incredibly valuable one. So let me say thank you for that, and I look forward to having a chance to see you in the future. And thank you as well to Robin and to Liz Owen for being our very great MCs and hosts for the afternoon.